School Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution, and the gay dating app crashes due to the Christian conservatives at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. What you say? Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Y'all will have they no damn shame pretending like they going to support Charlie, but they having a gay orgy. Let's get into the content.
We are anonymous. My voice is not tied to one person.
Y'all.
It belongs to everyone who refuses to look away. And tonight I bring you a story that reveals the rot inside the Republican Party. A story so absurd that reality itself wrote the punchline. A gay app Grindr. The very app these so-called moral crusaders condemn just exposed the entire Republican Party for the liars and hypocrites they are. Grindr, for those who don't know, is a gay dating app. It's where men connect for quick encounters. Nothing unusual about that except yesterday, it crashed. And the epicenter of this outage wasn't just anywhere, it was at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk. Yes, Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point.
Now let's just just take in what information we're getting here. I seen this the other day that I would just put it together because a lot of exposing is going on with those individuals have been exposed. So we got to bring them. As they met to pretend like they were celebrating the life of Charlie Kirk, they were celebrating gay orgies and swingers conventions. The app Grindr crashed in the area because too many conservatives at the Charlie Kirk Memorial was using the app and in the same location.
USA, a man who devoted his short life to fusing Christian nationalism with Republican politics. A man who claimed that America...
They can't get away from this. They know hiding this. They exposed themselves. The app crashed. Too many of them using that gay dating app and was in the same location. It crashed because of Charlie Kirk's memorial. They all met up in one place. Yeah, and they was all doing a bunch of hanky-panky and pretending like they were such devout Christian conservatives.
Survival depended on crushing liberalism, diversity, and LGBTQ rights. His death had already been transformed into a political weapon, and his memorial was designed as theater, a rally disguised as mourning. On stage stood Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, and a handful of others, all preaching that this was a war between good and evil. They invoked God. They wrapped themselves in the Bible. They declared themselves defenders of faith. The entire production dripped with arrogance and authoritarian hunger. And in the middle of it, Grindr went down. The outage spread across Arizona right as the memorial was happening. Down detector lit up with thousands of reports.
They busted. Now, we want to see what they blog about. They blog about that, Charlie Kirk supporters. Because, see, this is the type of shit they can't get away from. This is what technology does. They can pretend all they want. We knew they were pretending to be Christians and believe in the good book. But it was proven as they sat there and invoked Jesus and the Bible, Grindr was crashing because too many of those hypocrites was in the same location and they're on that app. So it crashed. Too many perverts were in the same location at one time who were on that app at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. They'll never be able to live that down. They busted. They trying to hide. They won't talk about this. We're going to discuss it.
Reports. A gay app failed during a Republican memorial in the exact space where leaders were condemning homosexuality, family breakdown, and what they call the evils of the left. You can't script irony this sharp. A memorial full of men who rail against gay rights, surrounded by people who secretly log into the very app they demonize, preaching morality in public while exposing their true desires in private. Hypocrisy revealed not by a whistleblower, not by the press, but by the crash of an app. The hypocrisy didn't end there. On that stage, Stephen Miller delivered one of the most disturbing speeches in modern politics. He shouted to the crowd, "Those who oppose us are nothing. They build nothing. They create nothing. They are envy, hatred, wickedness.
And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have?
Look, he one of the main ones. He one of the main ones on that using that app. He one of the main ones for. He probably got two or three. See, that's what happened. So you know, people like this, they got 2, 3 phones. His White House phone, his phone that he had for his job before he went here. Then he got his a phone that he used just for Grindr. All 3 of them got the Grindr app. But motherfucker like him, he gave it he had too much stress for the app. Cats like this.
You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness. You are jealousy. You are envy. You are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing.
His face was twisted with rage, his words dripping venom. It was pure fascist rhetoric, and the crowd cheered. Yet Miller himself has built nothing. The Trump administration built nothing. They dismantled, they destroyed, they gutted health care, cut Medicare, and Social Security slashed aid, tore down protections, and handed the country
These
to
people
billionaires.
met up at Charlie Kirk Memorial and gay hanky-panky broke out a gay orgy. That's crazy. They the biggest phonies in the world. That's the end of them, bro. We don't want nothing out these people no more, bro. They sat there and woke the Lord over and over and over. They trying to hurry up and get it over with so they go sleep with one another. And that's not just, that's a fact. That's a fact. The app crashed. 2 men of them was in the same place at the same time. That's not speculation. No whistleblower said this. No reporter caught none of them sneaking out hotels. You ain't got to do none of that. The app crashed because of them. Too many of them. Same location. Then they're lying, pretend like they got Christian values. This is about the family. Hypocrites.
Destruction is not creation, no matter how loudly you scream.
Soldier.
Then came Tulsi Gabbard, once a Democrat, now a Trump ally. And in a moment that almost sounded like rebellion, she spoke about free speech. She said freedom, the right to speak, even when we disagree. Free speech is the foundation of our democratic republic. We must protect it at all costs, because without it, we will be lost.
Freedom, the right to speak even when we disagree. Freedom. I may not agree with what you say, but I will fight to defend to the death with my very life your right to speak. Free speech is the foundation of our democratic republic. We must protect it at all costs, because without it, we'll be lost.
The words sounded noble, but here's the problem. The greatest threat to free speech is the man she now supports, Donald Trump. He has threatened companies, bullied media platforms, demanded censorship of voices he hates, and used the government to silence dissent. If Tulsi truly believes in free speech, she should call Trump himself, not just wave the words like a flag. But she won't, because this isn't about principles. This is about loyalty to power, and loyalty to Trump requires throwing away every principle, every truth, every shred of integrity. And then, of course, came Trump himself. He stood there claiming Charlie Kirk was a hero, a servant of God, a martyr. Trump never misses an opportunity to wrap himself in someone else's death. But let's be clear, Trump is no servant of God. He once bragged he has never asked God for forgiveness. He called himself the chosen one. He mocks faith while exploiting it. He pretends to defend Christianity while living as the embodiment of everything Christianity warns against. Let's talk about that. Many Christians believe the Antichrist will come as a deceiver. He will cloak himself in religion, exalt himself, demand loyalty, boast of being chosen, disregard laws, thrive on spectacle, mislead millions, and use symbols to bind followers to him. Look at Trump. He calls himself chosen. He refuses forgiveness. He disregards laws and norms. He thrives on spectacle. His red MAGA hat has become a mark of loyalty worn on the head like prophecy foretold. He boasts constantly demands worship, misleads millions. He checks every box, and yet evangelical Christians bow before him as if he were sent by heaven. It is the ultimate betrayal of their own faith. And while all of this played out, Grindr continued to flicker, crash, and fail. Reports poured in. The timing was too perfect. It became a mirror held up to the Republican Party. They condemn gay men yet can't stay off the app. They shout about family values while chasing desire in secret. They condemn free speech while demanding censorship. They claim to build while they destroy. Every part of the Republican project is hollow. Charlie Kirk's death only made this clearer. Nick Fuentes.
Somebody would have hacked it and seen who all was on there, probably would have brought down the Republican Party. They could have got who all was using their Grindr app that night.
Himself admitted it.
And
Kirk's death is being exploited to push J.D. Vance as Trump's heir. That's why Vance carried the coffin. That's why Vance rushed to host. They want to crown him as the successor. They want to milk Kirk's memory for political gain. And in doing so, they prove again this is not about faith, not about God, not about country. It is about power at any cost, even over the bodies of their own followers. And the crowd, they don't see it. They clap, they cheer, they chant. They don't notice that the very man they follow has given them nothing but division. They don't notice that the party of builders has built nothing but debt and despair. They don't notice that their supposed leaders are drowning in hypocrisy, exposed by their own actions. Here's what I see. There is nothing wrong with being gay. Nothing wrong with seeking connection. Nothing wrong with using Grindr. But there is something deeply wrong with condemning it while secretly participating. There is something deeply wrong with stripping rights from others while hiding your own desires. There is something deeply wrong with demanding morality from others while practicing corruption yourself.
They just say,
that is today's
they just say anything. They scammers. They don't believe one word coming out their mouth. Why they sitting there at one of the biggest scammers of their generation, Captain Kirk, Charlie Captain Kirk, Mr. America himself, as they sitting at his memorial telling a bunch of lies and can't wait to go have gay swinging orgies. And so the dating app crashed. So they're using it. They can't wait to leave. They're using it while they're sitting there. Listen to the memorial. Look how disgusting that is, y'all. They're using it. In there, perverse, trying to hook up in the event. Con men, scammers, they got exposed.
Republican Party, a party of hypocrisy, shadows, and lies. And Trump is at the center of it all. He hasn't built America stronger. He hasn't lifted anyone up. He has only enriched himself, cut social safety nets, weakened protections, and attacked truth itself. He hasn't defended faith. He has exploited it. He hasn't defended freedom. He has attacked it. He hasn't made America great. He has only made it more divided, more hateful, and more dangerous. So I ask you to remember this. Remember the Grindr outage at Charlie Kirk's memorial. Remember Stephen Miller's venom. Remember Tulsi Gabbard's hollow defense of free speech. Remember Trump's arrogance.
If the Nation of Islam or any Black Power brothers, NFAC, Revolutionary, red, black, and green, or Hebrews, anybody met up at some big convention and then a gay dating app crash, what? First the coons, they're gonna run it on their platform. Then he'll Benny Johnson and Ben Shapiro, and Tim Pool. They all will be talking about that. Talk about this show that gay black males and all that, bringing up Magic Johnson. They would run that. See, we knew where AIDS came from. They would run all that scandalous smear campaign on us, but it's not us. It's them, the hypocrites. Just like we said, but that is karma. They getting exposed. That's divine. Just like what happened to Captain Kirk, right? He was hating on us and smearing us to my gang violence, died on You see what I'm talking about, y'all? See, they crashed our program. They don't want to. Man, they don't want people to know what's going on, man. That the Charlie Kirk. Dang. Is it that serious, man? Did y'all ever crash our program, bro?
If you believe in truth, share
Shit.
this. If you see the hypocrisy, spread this message. Because silence is complicity, and the time.
Much more. We got much more. We ain't gonna stop. So you gotta have your backup Wi-Fi ready for the government agents in the audience to try to crash the program because they know the message been getting out over here on this platform. You know? So that's the best they can do. They can't dox come to where we at without getting knocked out their boots. So y'all know, no mind, y'all. That's the best they can do. But we got so much we're gonna be looking into today, especially Miss Massad Erica Kirk. Oh, she's Massad. Boy, we're gonna get into that next. That's not right now. Let's get into how demonic. So we started off saying they was perverts. The gay dating app crashed at this because of this memorial. That's all. That's a fact. This memorial crashed the gay dating app because too many of these God-fearing people were in the same location at the same time using that app. So not only do we know that they're a bunch of perverts, and at this Charlie Kirk memorial, they was having gay orgies and it crashed the gay dating app. That's a fact. So look at how demonic they really are.
Charlie's angry. Look at that. He's angry at me now.
I just kill him.
I hate my opponent.
And the men consumed with resentment, anger, and hate.
I hate my opponent.
I know that because I've got a little hate compartment in my heart.
I can't stand my opponent.
This is not going to be a popular video. Probably not going to get a lot of views because people are riding on this emotional, crazy roller coaster ride that the government has us going through right now. Whether you're talking about the deception of, was it a 30-06? Who was the shooter? They're not releasing the Epstein files. They're sitting on that. They're engaging in the most massive cover up of any PDF file ring you've ever seen, and a whole bunch of other corruption. We know from top to bottom. Just listen to George Washington. The government is not eloquence. It is not reason. It is force. It's threats. It's violence. It's coercion. It's slavery. It's all things evil. There's no good in government. In every generation, in every election, government always wins. Doesn't matter if it's your party. It's the guy who wanted to grab the ring of power. And if he wanted to grab the ring of power, he wanted to have power over you. So government is, in its essence, when you strip it all down and you take away all the euphemisms, is a group of people desiring to exercise rulership over others. And they feel like, because they're the political elite, that you are obligated to obey their rulership. And I wanted to go over the Charlie Kirk Memorial and some of the things that they're doing, because they're doing exactly what Constantine did in 323 AD when he defeated Linnaeus and became the ruler of the Roman Empire. Now, Constantine supported Christianity, but he blended his policies with Christianity, which God is very clear in the Bible you should never do, because when you mix truth with a lie, you end up with a lie and nothing that's truthful. You can't mix Christianity with paganism. You can't mix Christianity with the evils of government, just like you can't mix light and darkness. As a matter of fact, in the book of Isaiah, it says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And that's exactly what you have here. You have a merger of state power and Christianity, a marriage of religion and state. Anytime you have a marriage of religion and state, you have nothing but evil. I don't care if you're talking about Democrat evil, and they are very evil, or Republican evil, you still have evil at the end of the day. Let me give you some excerpts of how much they talked about God and Jesus and the gospel and righteousness and being faithful. Political parasites.
That's why I'm glad we started with the gay dating app crashed because it's memorial. So all that y'all knew they was fake. Y'all knew they wasn't telling the truth about the religious nature. We knew that. But now that we know the gay dating site crashed, that put a little bit more, put a little bit of spotlight on these fucking hypocrites, bro. A lot of these perverts only got out the house so they come be gay with one another, tell their wife, I'm going to pay my respects to the white man, the great race. Charlie, white man, fight back. Why they came out to sleep with one another?
Are actually preaching the gospel. And don't think for a second that a demon is not going to preach to you the gospel. Remember what Paul said in the book of Corinthians? There's another Jesus, a different gospel, and a different spirit, but it's all shrouded in deception. And that's what we're talking about right here. Check out some of these excerpts.
Charlie's angry. Look at that. He's angry at me now.
Billions of dollars to mental health.
This is Kilmeade, Brian.
I know, but what the evidence I got today, we're going to be looking at Erica Kirk and her ties to Trump. Like my Clifford was saying in the audience last night, we knew way before she ever met Charlie Kirk, her parents strong ties to Israel. That's crazy. Strong ties to Israel. And now we know Charlie Kirk's security team was a Israeli firm. Oh, it's definitely. But Trump in on it too. Trump put this girl on that young man after they seen that young man was a rising star. Trump put this young girl on. Trump people decided to do it onto that young man. And he wasn't useful anymore to him. That's just a fact, bro.
Kilmeade, who's rightly named, calling for the outright murder of undesirables.
And the homeless population, a lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why
Look at this coon right here. Look at this coon. This is the conversation they talking about. And a lot of whites are going after him for saying that they should just kill. You should die if you don't want to take, if you got mental health issues and you don't want to take that medicine, they should just kill you. The coon was saying, throw your butt in jail if you don't want to take the medicine that the government wants you to take, which you'll never be the same again. Now look at how he's sitting there. The reason this, and he just heard the white man, ooh, he said killer. I can't say that. But they're talking about the black dude on the train who killed the white girl with the black dude had mental health issues. They promote this dude not talking about just killing white people. That's why he had to come and apologize the next day. They're like, boy, you crazy white people. Good white people don't deserve to die. That's what the white audience rose up. So hold on, you can't be killing Uncle Willie and Pops. Pops done lost his mind. A lot of them got uncles that came back from war and lost their mind. But he was just thinking about the black dude and what he was saying, just kill him. He's saying to kill all the mentally ill black people. So that's what that coon. See, coons like this to get us all killed. He tried to be, lesser of the two evils. We should lock them all up, huh, Massa? And Massa said, hell no, we should kill all those niggas. That's what happened.
Why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this, we're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up. Just kill them.
Or something. Just kill them. Back to Trump at the Charlie Kirk Memorial.
I hate my opponent. I can't stand my opponent.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men.
This lady was in on it. That's why when we looked at her today, the reason she can't shed no tears because she didn't give a shit about that dude, bro. And she already had paper. We're going to get into that. This lady was already a millionaire. This lady come from money. So she didn't kill a man for no money. She's rich. Popping and rich. They've been tied to Israel. That's a fact. Been tied to Israel, but she is what's called a honeypot. They use her looks. I can say the other day, she's nothing but a prostitute. They use her looks to get Charlie, grooming. Probably got Charlie on all kind of tapes doing disgusting stuff that his wife, Israel ain't have to bug nothing. This is Israel, his wife. She had already had the motherfucker. Imagine the shit. She ain't got no prostitutes ain't got to get the dirt. Imagine what she got on that nigga.
Just like the one who took his life.
He was unafraid, he was not defensive, and there was no hate in his heart.
I hate my opponent.
I know that because I've got a little hate compartment in my heart, and I would often express that to Charlie about various people, and he would always say, that's a sad person, that's a broken person, that's a person who needs help, that's a person who needs Jesus. Intense conversations that you don't stop thinking about, which is my experience with him. But the main thing about Charlie and his message, he was bringing the gospel to the country. He was doing the thing that the people in charge hate most, which is calling for them to repent.
And Charlie did this so well. He was winning, so much so that the forces of darkness, hate, and evil were threatened by him and tried to.
Charlie was a puppet. Milli Vanilli. Anybody know the story of Milli Vanilli? The big, you had people pretend like they were singing. They weren't really singing. Other people were singing, but they didn't have the looks that the producers want you to have. So they just used other people. You know, the fake singers out there. Milli Vanilli, fake singers. Charlie is Milli Vanilli. I told you, none of his ideas regurgitating old white supremacist ideas. They just used his little boyish, young looks. I mean, the dude was actually dumb than a box of rocks. But that didn't matter because they just used a young white face to promote white supremacy and hatred towards blacks and hatred towards immigrants and gays and lesbians. It was all that old crazy shit that they, it was good old gospel from them. They're just using that boy and groomed him to manipulate. See, remember, it's like rappers. They just use the rappers to manipulate the youth. They just use Charlie to manipulate the young whites to go in the direction that they wanted. And then when the time was up for him, he wasn't going to get no Israel. They whacked him so they can harness all that young white energy to go into the direction that they want without needing the Milli Vanilli puppet any motherfucking more. They don't need him anymore. They don't care. That's why nobody ain't crying. That's why no real sobbing going on. People don't give a shit about that, man. Revolutionary salute. They don't care, bro. That's crazy.
To silence
all
him.
these people hungry
the forces of darkness.
They know right now it's big. Probably like Tupac got killed. Everybody felt, oh man, I got to get in line and kill. Everybody, the Republican side is from Tucker Carlson, crazy ass companion man to Jesus. They don't believe. None of these people believe that man was no damn Jesus. They wouldn't say anything to get those likes and views and all that money that was going Charlie way to come their way now.
Were threatened by him and tried to silence him. What is the biggest force for darkness in the world today? Government. The idea that I can rule you against your will and without your consent, and you can't say anything about it. And if you try to resist my rulership, I will come after you. I will hunt you down. That is darkness. If you can't live just to be left alone, as long as you're not harming, threatening to harm somebody, damage their property, or stealing their property, if you can't live like that, this isn't the land of the free, home of the brave. And so when we have a merger of religion and the things that sound right, couched in the evil and parasitic nature of politics and politicians, you've got nothing but bad coming out of this. You have a corrupted source, a corrupted well. And what did Jesus say? A little leaven leavens the whole lump. Well, government is a lot of leaven. It's a lot of evil. It's a lot of darkness. Trying to share with you the message of light. What hypocrisy.
To ask him how to respond to such hate and the souls from which that hate springs.
I hate my opponent.
The souls for which the hate springs. Let's see. Whose heart is it springing out of?
And the souls from which that hate springs.
I hate my opponent.
And the men consumed with resentment, anger, and hate.
I can't stand my opponent.
The answer to hate is not hate.
What a psychological operation, and the cognitive dissonance with which people pacify themselves is pretty astounding.
The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
He was a missionary with a
love for our enemies, like blowing up 11 people in a boat in the Atlantic, and we have no idea who they are. Blowing up somebody in the Middle East, or 100 people in a prayer circle, and we have no idea who they are. The government, who always lies to us, tells us that they're terrorists, that they're narco traffickers, they're narco terrorists, and they're trying to jeopardize American lives. But we know the government lies to us. So we applaud the death of these people that the government tells us were our enemies, when in fact they may not be our enemies. They may just be regular people trying to be left alone, living their lives. Are you going to start believing the government now? Do you believe the government? Do you believe the Democrat government more than the Republican government? Do you believe the Republican government more than the Democrat government?
noble spirit.
They want you to be in this left versus right paradigm lie so you can be confused. And you go, well, that looks better than that. I think I'll just take that slice of cake instead of that because that's putrid and it clearly has maggots, even though that slice of cake, even though it looks perfect, looks picture perfect, like it came out of the magazine in Better Homes and Gardens or something, but you don't know that there's arsenic in it. So that slice of cake, that Republican slice of cake, is far more deceptive, admittedly, than that Democrat maggot-infested slice of cake. Even the Bible is clear about this covert nature of deception. A demon doesn't come to you with horns and a pitchfork and fangs dripping with blood. They come to you as angels of light, as messengers of goodness and peace.
And a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
You know what's interesting about this? Donald Trump is actually telling the truth right here. He hates his opponents. Guess who his opponents are? People who own bump stocks. A bump stock ban criminalized hundreds of thousands of peaceful Americans who committed no crime. Red flag gun confiscation laws are hatred against Americans who love the Second Amendment and want firearms to protect themselves. I like take the guns first, due process second, is hatred for all Americans who want to protect themselves. The CARES Act, the $6.2 trillion power and wealth transfer that ended up closing thousands of businesses and ruining millions of Americans, that is hatred. So he's right. He hates his opponents, just like Joe Biden hates his opponents and Barack Obama hates his opponents. And their opponents, these political parasites' opponents, are you, the people they create laws against to strip your freedoms.
I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
He can't. And he was the snake, and you invited him in.
Charlie's angry. Looking down, he's angry at me now. He wasn't interested in demonizing anyone. He was interested in persuading everyone to the ideas and principles he believed were good, right, and true. Right. On campuses all over the country, his quest for open dialogue was met with menacing hate. I hate my opponent. And the only one challenging them are people that hate our country or foreign countries that are paying a price because they did the same thing to us for years.
The legacy he built, his values, his love of God, and true joy he found in his Savior, Jesus Christ. It was the honor of my life to serve you as you serve Jesus. And now we will all continue to serve you as we continue to serve Jesus.
We will continue to serve Charlie Kirk as we continue to serve Jesus. And what did Jesus say? You can't serve two masters. This whole Charlie Kirk memorial was a big FU to people who actually believe the Bible while they're using the Bible and invoking the name Jesus. That's how hypocritical and deceptive this whole thing is. And Christians are falling for it hook, line, and sinker.
And that is what Charlie would have wanted us to know about his faith in Jesus Christ. The power of Christ's blood and the power of martyrdom speaks through Charlie.
Charlie knew that life wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about sex. It wasn't just about power. It wasn't just about prestige.
You little pervert. It wasn't just about sex, gay dating sex, you fucking pervert. You just can't help. You can't wait to get out there and get at them young boys you've been looking at. All the young boys you told you're going to interview. You see that future looks bright in politics, young man. Yeah, bullshit. They future look bright in politics, you fucking pervert. Look at you. You definitely crashed the app. Charlie knew it just wasn't about sex. I mean, about saving souls. Nah, nigga, you said sex. Yeah, I meant saving souls. That ain't what you said, pervert.
He knew that the purpose of life is to know Jesus and to make him known, to make heaven crowded.
Which Jesus? The Jesus that's going to accept politics as the answer to the problems in the world? If the problem with the world is that there are evil, psychopathic people who want to rule, then the last thing you'd want to do is give those psychopaths the ring of power and qualified and official immunity, giving them a government so they can trample on the rest of us legally.
And ladies and gentlemen, let's honor Jesus. Let's honor Charlie.
For so many of us, he loved Jesus Christ. Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about, what do we do about this guy telling the truth?
This little bastard too smart for his own good. And the Jews attacked him for saying this because that's exactly, he knew what he was doing. His blood lie. He knew what he was doing. See, this motherfucker, Charlie Kirk wanted to be like him one day. Intellectual bigot who can mask it and put it down at times but pick it back up when they want to. And right now, he wants to pick up the bigotry, but he also wants to attack the Jews. Now, he's only saying, Charlie reminded me of what happened to Jesus. And it's discussed that he compared Charlie to Jesus, but never forget the Jews killed Jesus, you see? And in real life right now, he's saying Israel killed Jesus. So he got attacked
about us
for his speech, because hidden in his speech is he saying the Jews killed Charlie.
Must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea. Why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
The first thing I thought when I saw this right here, it's pretty sick what they're doing in trying to merge politics and things that people consider to be good, like the gospel and Jesus Christ and the light of the world and all that. But when I saw this, I was thinking, is this Duper's Delight? Because this is very, very strange.
It doesn't work that way. The only real solution is Jesus. And the reason...
The watered down, non-Christian, pro-government, pro-divisive left versus right Jesus, because that's what they're selling you on right here. They're selling you on the idea of becoming American tax cattle, getting into the sheep pen, and voting for rightist statism, the idea that somebody has the right to control and rule you and steal your income.
And it's really simple. Politics, at its core, is a process of critiquing other people and getting them to change.
That's not true. Oh, it's partially true. It's trying to get them to change, but it's trying to get them to vote for the chains of their own oppression. It's trying to get them to consent with their vote, which is their voice, to consent to psychopathic rulers, not only ruling themselves, but trampling on and violating others. That's what politics is. And they do it through lies and deception and emotionalism and fear-mongering. They employ the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, wait for the fear-based emotional reaction, which everybody's having. The people on the left are angry and they want to make sure that, that they're celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. And then on the right, you got, oh my God, more people are going to church now. More people are reading their Bibles. They're reading their Bibles first time in 20, 30 years. Now we have this, they're equating this with a revival. It's a spiritual revival in the political system, in the political arena. Now we're going to have more people who are going to be voting red. This is great. So that's the reaction, and the solution is, hey, we've got the solution that we had waiting in the wings the entire time. We're going to set up the technocratic police state, predictive policing through Palantir. And you're going to be ushering that in through Peter Thiel and through J.D. Vance. And Israel will get a bigger foothold through the Judeo-Christian road.
Christianity, the gospel message, the message of Jesus, begins with repentance. Christianity calls upon you to change. Our core prayer given to us by Jesus, the Lord's Prayer, demands that we forgive other people, but preceding that is a request for our forgiveness. And it becomes possible to forgive other people. That is a call to change our hearts from Jesus. And that is the only way forward in this country. That is the only solution to where we all know we're going. And Charlie knew where we were going without that.
Oh, we know what direction we're going because we know where the administration wants us to go. They want us to turn away from the fact that there's Epstein and Epstein is not even close to scratching the tip of the iceberg. And yet this current Trump administration that Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec and all of these speakers endorse and support is covering for the largest pedophile ring as they speak in Charlie's name right here. And Charlie Kirk even knew that.
And that is not a call for being politically passive. Of course not. I stood in many stages with Charlie calling for various people to be elected, particularly Donald Trump.
Don't be politically passive. We want you to engage in the process so that you can participate in the humiliation and demoralization ritual of voting for the chains of your own oppression.
And
that way, when we drop the bombs, we do it in your name. When we devalue your dollar, we do it with your vote and with your consent. You're participating in the evil with us. That's how evil and disgusting and deceptive this is. Please share this video because I don't see anybody else saying this.
Proud of that. It's only an acknowledgement that what Charlie was
Did you
really
hear that?
saying.
Did you hear that last part right there?
Just with Charlie calling for various people to be elected, particularly Donald Trump. And I'm proud of that. It's only an acknowledgement that what Charlie was really saying is that change begins, the only change that matters, when we repent of our sins. Me.
Only Christ is King, our Lord and Savior. Our sins are washed away by the blood of Jesus. Fear God and fear no man. That was Charlie Kirk.
Pete Hegseth preaching to you about the righteousness of God. Did you ever think you would see that day? And now you've got Don Jr. of all people preaching to you about righteousness, faith, peace, and love in the gospel.
Now, there are many times in the Bible where Jesus is seated at the right hand of God, but this is the only time he's seen standing. And while the Bible isn't explicit about this, I like to think Jesus was standing to welcome Stephen, the courageous martyr, into heaven.
Had a revival in celebration of Charlie Kirk and of his Lord Jesus Christ. Charlie brought the truth that Jesus Christ was the King of Kings and that all truth flowed from this first and most important one. As much as it was an important part of my life, I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time in public life.
I wanted to keep it on this crowd right here. Look at them, standing ovation. Christians eat this up. They're so quick to drop their guard. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Guard your heart from all of these charlatans, the Palantir charlatans.
And that is an undeniable legacy of the great Charlie Kirk. You know, he loved God. And because he loved God, he wanted to understand God's creation and the men and women made in his image.
Being a follower of Christ is not easy. Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me.
But what was even more important to Charlie than politics and service was the choice he made in the 5th grade, which he called the most important decision of his life, to become a Christian and a follower of his Savior, Jesus Christ.
This QR code, we are going to give you everything you need to walk this walk with Christ. Faith comes from hearing and hearing from the Word of God, and it's time to get into a Bible-believing church. And pastors, if you didn't want to give Charlie Kirk the time of day, these folks are going to be showing up at your church, and
right
they're there.
That's where you can donate to, pray, and connect with us. As soon as you hit that QR code, they want a little donation to keep the faith going, brother.
Because of his life. God bless you, and may the Lord keep you. Amen.
The gay dating app crashed this. This memorial service crashed the gay dating app. You see what I'm saying? That's what we're always gonna remember. Once all these perverts got together, it turned into Sodom and Gomorrah in Arizona. The gay dating app crashed. It could not take. It just was too many perverts and gay swingers in one place. They never imagined it. Like, God damn, they flew all over the world. They're talking Christian conservatives. Man, y'all crazy. Y'all are busted, bro.
He did it because that's what a leader does. That's what a friend does. And that's what a Christian is supposed to do. Sometimes I would express guilt.
Where is your victory, O death? Where is your sting? Christ has overcome death.
By the way, this is the spokesman for TPUSA. This is the guy who said that the surgeon who worked on Charlie Kirk said that the 30-06 bullet lodged in his neck and did not go through. That's the official. This guy right here has done more to promote the nonsense of the official story than pretty much anybody on the internet with that statement.
After 10 years of work with Charlie Kirk, after his witnessing to my life, I have become a Christ-centered man. I am happily married to the woman of my dreams sitting right there.
I want your dream, my ass Grindr crash, nigga. You ain't getting away with that, Benny. Woman of my dreams, you guilty. Don't you dare. She needs to. She did all, man. Why didn't you check all their motherfucking phones? They find their Grindr on that. Check their history, search history, even all that. You goddamn right. Look at him. He guilty as shit. This is my beautiful wife, the love of my life. Bitch, but why is Grindr crashing while all y'all? If all y'all love y'all beautiful wife so much, why the hell is Grindr crashing when all y'all come together? That don't even make no sense. If y'all are so in love with y'all wives, y'all love y'all women so much, you can't think of you just think about them morning, noon, and night. You just got to have them. What the hell is the gay dating app crashing when all of y'all get together and in the same place? Come on, man. We know why that happened.
All of you had a Charlie moment in your life, didn't you?
You had a Charlie moment in your life, not a Jesus moment, a come to Jesus moment. You had a Charlie moment, and that anybody would look at Benny Johnson and take one word this plagiarist says seriously is beyond me.
Raise your hand if Charlie Kirk centered you a little closer to Christ. Did Charlie help you achieve your American dream? And that is the power of martyrdom.
Ain't no more.
Because Charlie Kirk is a martyr in the true Christian tradition.
Not bullshit.
Revival moment in our country and going, maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe the full park.
There's no indication that anybody, whoever killed Charlie Kirk, first of all, you would have to believe the government to believe that they actually apprehended the right person. And because government always lies to us, it is likely that they didn't apprehend the right person.
They didn't know they were going to get it.
Given that, we don't know what the motive of the shooter was. We don't know if he was.
Man, nobody, man, I've been in a black church all day, raised in. We don't say Jesus that much, Lord. It's just too much. What are you hiding? Now we know, we already knew something was up. Like, hold on, something ain't right about this. Oh, it definitely ain't right. They all is on the great gay dating app. It's crashing. And then he's smiling like, I guess he had already went and had some fun. He thinking about what happened or what he about to do. You see what I'm talking about? You know, oh, my love of my life. Boy, please. You busted, Benny Johnson. That's serious business. Benny, you busted, bro. If you ain't busted, then you need to be blogging about who was there having gay orgies. Because that happened. That just happened. Now y'all say I was a Christian conservative. I told y'all. I just talked about culture when we talk about Nick Fuentes and that Italian guy, and they disgusting, perverted, mafioso, pedophilia culture. But even this fool, right? These are all Greek freaks. When you ask them, where does their culture come from? If they're white, they talk about the history. They're gonna go back to Rome, and they're gonna go back to Greece. That's a fact. Man, boy, love. Man, boy, love. You see? That is their motherfucking culture. And they proved it. They got together, went back to what they do. They just doing what they do, bro. All this preaching the gospels is an act. Just like the small hats was forced to pick a religion by Russia, the Europeans, they was forced to pick certain religions too. And they tried to come up with their own, like the Mormons, you know, and the Church of England, and the Protestants. They started coming up with their own type of way to run their own version of the good book. But they never believed it. Actions speak louder than words.
Not because the guy didn't like his ideas. We don't know if the guy shot him because he didn't like his Christianity. So given that, you cannot say that he died for his Christianity, died for his faith. You can't be, if you didn't die for your faith, if you were killed for something, some other reason, you're not a martyr. Even if you believe the government's official story, there's nothing that the shooter said or that we know that he said that indicated that the reason he offed Charlie Kirk is because he hated his faith and he hated his God. No indication at all.
Was Hitler killed because of his faith? That's why was Hitler killed because of his faith? Because Hitler was a strong Christian who believed in Jesus. Strong Christian. God-fearing man. That's a fact. Hitler was a God-fearing man, believed in Jesus, believed in family values, the mother, the father, raised the children. I mean, the same shit Charlie Kirk is spewing. I told you he just regurgitated old racist talking points. And that's what they never want to talk about. Hitler was a Christian national. Hitler loved the Lord.
You can't chalk him up to be a martyr. There's no factual evidence for it.
Lots. Who knows somebody now who's a Satanist or an agnostic? And that's what we see.
But this is part of the psychological operation. This is the power. There's power in martyrdom. When you have dedicated followers who believe with all their heart that the guy who just died for his faith and died for his cause, now there's no getting through to the people who wholeheartedly believe this message right there. You thought it was hard to get people to understand how evil government was and how we just need to stand against it and remain united in our resistance. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. You thought it was hard before Charlie Kirk. It's going to be near impossible to get through to the cognitively dissonant right now.
Time and time again, we're seeing it across this country. Who's seen the full churches, the full parking lots? Who knows somebody now who's a Satanist or an agnostic, who's now looking at Charlie's life in this revival moment in our country and going, maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe I do need to Christ center my life. This is what Charlie always wanted. This is how he wanted to be remembered.
It's a revival moment, a political revival.
In the mold of Stephen, the first martyr, for speaking the truth about Christ, much like Charlie Kirk.
But Charlie Kirk when he died, he wasn't speaking the truth about Christ. He was talking about a gun violence issue.
After Stephen's martyrdom, Christianity spread throughout the known world. The power of martyrdom. This is how God and Christ always advances his kingdom, and he's doing it right now with Charlie Kirk. It is a wonderful thing to see. We were all witness to a miracle. Charlie's life was a miracle. We could all see it. Those who worked up close.
It's a miracle. Even the spokesperson for TPUSA called it a miracle. Charlie's man of steel neck even saved those behind him. Otherwise, it would have gone through. It would have hurt other people. That's how Charlie lived his life, saving other people. This is a revival moment.
The power of Christ's blood and the power of martyrdom speaks through Charlie. Center your life on Christ.
We as Christians are called to go into the public arena to correct error with truth. I'm far more interested in what God wants of me than what I want from God.
Charlie was my commanding officer. And we will never, ever let the left, the media, or the Democrats forget the name of Charlie Kirk. The Bible tells us Charlie Kirk was a citizen who had the biblical heart of a soldier of the faith, who put on every single day the full armor of God with a smile, as the scriptures tell all Christ followers to do.
That she packed a Bible. When her mother asked her why she made that choice, she said, I want to live more like Charlie.
The Bible says over 100 times in the pages of scripture, do not be afraid.
He quoted one of his favorite Bible verses, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. This past week, we saw people open a Bible for the first time in a decade. Go through his contact list and send Bible verses for the day. Read the Bible again. Go to church next Sunday.
Charlie's angry. Looking down, he's angry at me now.
So what we've got here is an effective and deceptive psychological operation merging political and religious power. And that is a very, very dangerous and damning mix. I want to hear what you have to say about this in the comment section below. If you like these videos, just
against what? Other white Christian men? Did they not get the memo that it was another white Christian man that shot Charlie Kirk? What are they protesting about? White men fight back against whom? I mean, they're going to use this obviously as a rallying cry to continue to be more racist, because that's what they are. When you have a bunch of neo-Nazis and white supremacists upset that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us, it makes me wonder what kind of Christian values Charlie Kirk was talking about if the white nationalists and the white supremacists are upset that he and his ideas are no longer with us. Anyway, who are they fighting back against? Because it's constantly white Christian men in this country who are the problem. It's not just white men, it's white Christian men. It's always Christian men, Christian pastors, Christian politicians. How many white Christian men do you think we're going to find on the Epstein list if it ever gets released? Oh, I bet you there's going to be a lot of white Christian men on that list. It's always white Christian men. So let's not pull punches and act like that's not the case. The problem in this country is white Christian men. I can't imagine what's going to go wrong when you have a bunch of neo-Nazis talking about white men fight back. Is this how we make America great again? Okay. All right. Let's see what happens. It won't be good.
Did you see the parade of angry white men chanting, "White man fight back, white man fight back"? It's extremely alarming to hear, but I'm more so confused. My brother in Christ, for people that look like us to the outside world, it appears that we run and own everything. So most people are curious, who are you fighting back against? And not only that, if you're talking about Charlie Kirk, if you're talking about most mass and school shooters, they're people that look like us. They're white people. So I'm genuinely confused when you're out there on the street with your tiki torches and you're yelling, "White man, fight back." What? Who are you being oppressed by? Ourselves? We need to be fighting ourselves? I'm curious. And not to mention, after the third or fourth time saying "white men fight back," don't you just naturally want to get quiet and just be like, oh, maybe white men should be fighting back against our own, against fellow people that look like us. We can stand up for injustices, absolutely, but to think that white men are the ones being oppressed, hard to gain an audience on that platform, my guy.
Back, white man fight 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 back.
Radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone. They want open borders.
All right, so let's get a few things straight. He was an independent, the shooter. He was an independent. He voted for Trump. His whole family was conservatives. His mom and his dad are Republicans. They also voted for Trump as well as the shooter. And the shooter himself ended up voting for Trump. Unlike what Nancy Mace ended up saying, he wasn't trans. He wasn't a part of that whole community. Yeah, so their narrative did not age well at all. Did not age well at all. Dude just had hate in his heart. That's it. He did not like what Charlie Kirk ended up saying. And as I've already indicated, you guys, I didn't agree with anything that Charlie Kirk ended up saying. Maybe one or two things that he ended up saying, but no, most of the stuff that came out of that guy's mouth, not at all. Not at all. But still did not give him the right to take that man's life. So now, let the courts decide. Plain and simple. Pretty sure people are going to be watching it. Not sure if they're going to televise it or not, but time for the courts to handle the system. They got the dude, didn't off himself, sitting in jail. His own father turned him in. Let me know your thoughts.
Americans who react to the viral video, White Men Fight Back. Now, all this is as a result of a reaction to Charlie Kirk, who has been
panicking. Every conservative in the country called panicking.
She's a lawmaker. She's a congresswoman. And she's not the only one saying this. The Democrats are responsible for this. Fox News, Jesse Waters, the Democrats are responsible for this. They're literally telling the conservative, the right-wing viewers, the right-wing voters, the right-wing crowd to declare war on the left. And what's the result of that?
This video's in regards to Charlie Kirk. And this video's for the liberals. It's war, muckers. We're coming for you. We're coming for you. And spare me your self-righteous bullshit lectures. I don't give a We're coming for you.
When I said earlier that I condemn violence, I will not condone violence. This is why violence only begets violence. They are blaming this on the left, blaming this on Democrats when we're not the ones that spread the rhetoric of, gun violence is okay. Charlie Kirk himself spreads the rhetoric that gun violence is acceptable. But I need you to understand the communities that are most in danger with this type of rhetoric, this type of violence being threatened, this type of war on the streets being threatened. Not people that look like me. Unless you talk to me, unless you follow me online, you won't know that I'm a leftist. I'm pretty Republican coded. When they say they're going after the left, they're going to profile people to determine who the left is. So if you are black and brown, if you are trans, if you are queer, if they feel like you're trans, if they feel like you're queer, if they feel like you're a leftist at all, then you can be a target of this violence. And no, I'm not saying that everybody in the LGBTQI plus community or black and brown community is leftist. That's what they think. So why do I condemn violence? It's because always in this country, when violent rhetoric gets turned up, it's always marginalized communities that pay the highest price for it. Violence only begets violence forever and always. Nonviolent civil disobedience does work. We need to do it en masse. We need to shut the system down. But now, by the actions of one man, everybody on the right is using this as an opportunity to attack. Because guess what? The people on the right, the politicians on the right, they know they're losing. They know that the nonviolent civil disobedience, that the tide is turning against them. They know that the American people are not standing for their bullshit. So they need something. They need something to take control of it and stop us. They're grabbing onto this violent act to declare war on the left. And the most ironic part of the entire thing is that everybody I hear from violence condemning the shooting, and they are now calling for more violence. It is always their rhetoric that calls for violence, and it is always the rhetoric of the left to preach nonviolence and condemn acts of violence.
Oh my God, Charlie Kirk died just because of a difference of opinion. He just wanted to debate and he was killed for it. Y'all know nothing. You functionally know nothing. Do you actually still believe this is about a difference of opinion? Now, we don't actually know if Charlie Kirk was assassinated for his political views, but it kind of doesn't matter at this point. Everyone's already talking about it and taking a side on this. And I have seen so many fucking white people come out here and be all like, if you support gun control, there's no way you can support this. You need to condemn this. This is disgusting. How could you use violence? And listen, I get it. Okay, it's not easy to see a man get shot the way Charlie Kirk did. I didn't like it, right? But you need to understand that this is not about a difference of opinion. This has always been a war that has been fought for decades, for centuries, actually, and you have been completely blind to it. Charlie Kirk is just the one you've seen because it's big. Like, if you ask any white person who Malcolm X is, right, just ask them. I've asked my family, and I've asked people, and they generally go like, I think he was, fucking Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know. They literally don't know. Ask them who, what was it, Medgar Evers or George Lee. Ask them how Martin Luther King Jr. died. And I've heard some people say shit like, oh, well, didn't he die because he cheated on his wife and the husband killed him or something? These people know nothing, right? You are literally blind. There have been so many political assassinations going on for so long, and you're only seeing the white one, okay? You're only seeing the one that's so loud because he looks like you. It is time for you to decide if your political beliefs are worth dying for. And I know that sounds like such an escalation, but that is where we're at. And I mean, Black people have known this for ages. Any Black activist has always been willing to risk their life for the freedoms they are fighting for, because they know they're not just fighting for themselves. They're fighting for all people of color that look like them. But white people have never had to risk our lives like that. Anything and not worry about getting assassinated. But as things escalate, it is time for you to decide who you're fighting for and if it's worth risking your life for. And the truth is, we are willing to risk our lives so that concentration camps stop happening, so that border jails stop happening, so that children aren't taken from their mothers, so that Black people aren't killed in the streets. We are willing to risk our lives for that. And I don't want anyone to die, right? I don't want any violence to happen from this, but I understand that the opposition, the war that has been won, settled by sitting down, being quiet, and saying, "Oh well, it's gonna happen," risking their lives. And Charlie Kirk was a live by the book, I guess, and what he believed in. It was fucking worth it. One bit, anything said for. But I'm liberals that have said things that I'd be, but it's not going to be forever. It's going to come to light. And when that happens, violence can also come from it, because people are going to have to fight for their lives. And you have to decide if you're going to be with those people fighting, or if you're going to be someone who stands in their way. That's what war is. And it's unfortunate. That's what revolution is. And it's going to be televised. And that's why we saw what happened to Charlie Kirk. And it sucks. And I get it. And I feel sympathy. And I'm sort of mad I feel sympathy for him. But
feeling sick to my stomach about the video I saw coming out of that Utah. Sick to my horrified. At the same time that was going on, there was yet another act of violence at school. Sick to my stomach that Minnesota representatives are getting attacked. Sick to my stomach that we have a nation leading the world with money and progress and all of these things, and you're leading the world with horrific violence, hate, and aggression. I wish I had a chalkboard lesson. I wish I had a word to write and everybody would pay attention, because I write that, I joke, and everybody thinks it's so funny and watches me. Yet I am watching the unraveling of a civilization while people take control over it, amp up fear, amp up hatred, amp up violence, and lead with it. I don't have that solution. I am so tired of a nation that is supposed to be leading this world. All of the resources, all of the access, all of the advantages that they have, and you are shooting each other in the streets? I wish I had some sort of magic quote to say. I wish I could be funny enough for you guys to listen to me and to stop. But I am going to say this. You are not going to beat violence with more violence. I promise you that. You aren't going to just go up and up and up in this escalation of stupidity and hope for a good end. It won't end well. You want this to stop? Come up with actual solutions. Come up with ways to care of your children, educating your children, feeding your children, health issues. Everybody access empathy and inclusivity in that society, because if you, it will all the ground. Start leading with change, not with pointing the finger. Problem, because that's absolutely nowhere. The solution, you don't have gut.
All death can do to a bullet fired at Charlie Kirk is a bullet fired at all of us. There will be no mercy, no diplomacy, and no surrender to those extremists, anti-Christian and anti-conservative values and ideology who seek to wipe us out. Charlie was not a violent man. He was a family man. We are under attack and we must defend ourselves.
They don't know who the was. They don't even know who the responsible party, who it was. Like the shooter hasn't been caught. They don't know if it was the person of color. They don't know anything. They just know that the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk usually do. So logic that a person of color would be the responsible party, but they don't know.
Welcome. So in this video, we took a look at some white men who reacted to the viral video, "White Men Fight Back." Even before investigations were launched into finding the culprit who unalived Charlie Kirk, some white men were of the opinion or the view that it must be a black man who might have carried on with this particular activity or crime. Meanwhile, the culprit had not been found yet. They thought so because of the kind of words that Charlie Kirk had always been saying, things that he had been saying about people of color. So they thought that, and definitely it must be a person of color who might have carried out this particular activity or crime. But in the end, it was revealed that it was a white young man who carried out this particular activity. And to make matters even worse, this white man belonged to the Republican Party, because some people were also speculating that this was a political assassination. Now, a top government official made this particular statement that this was a political assassination, and they kept blaming people on the left for carrying out such a crime or an atrocity. Now, when things are happening, other people try to find fault with the other people on the other side, thinking that they are the people who might have caused something like this. But in the end, it turns out that it is never so. So a lot of Republicans who are blaming and labeling this on the Democrat found themselves in the wrong direction, in the sense that it was revealed that this young man comes from a Republican family and he himself votes Republican. So what might have been the cause for him carrying out this particular activity? I believe investigations into it will bring out further more details as to why he carried out this particular activity. But coming to the point that majority of these people on the right were blaming people on the left for things that had happened. Meanwhile, it wasn't so. Even the governor of Utah also said that he was hoping that it wasn't someone from Utah who had perpetrated that atrocity. And he was even saying, he went further to say that he hopes that it is not anyone from the United States of America who has perpetrated this kind of atrocity. So that kept me wondering, what was he thinking? Was he expecting an immigrant to be the person who has committed that atrocity? And which immigrant will go out there and do that? Was he expecting someone from maybe China to fly into the United States and then commit such an atrocity? Or someone maybe from Africa to come over there, commit that atrocity, and then probably go back to Africa again? What was he thinking? Definitely it was going to be someone from the United States of America who had committed such atrocity, and someone from Utah to be exact. These were the findings that were made, and I believe that this kind of things need to stop. This blame game of blaming people even before finding out the root cause of the atrocity.
All right, I have barely slept since yesterday's live, and I know that I said that that was going to be my last video, at least for quite some time, concerning the Charlie Kirk situation. Yet here we are. I have done quite a bit of research because things did not feel complete yesterday. Chance. Everything I say in this video is alleged. If you want the uncensored version of this video and you're already on Patreon, then good for you. Then you are already on the right video. But if you are on YouTube, then a lot of the symbolism that has been right here in our face the entire time, all of the signs that's been right here in our face the entire time, I'm going to place them at the end of the video so that I can easily edit this video for both Patreon and YouTube version. If you want to see that part of the video, it's going to have to go on Patreon for multiple different reasons and multiple different levels of protection. I don't want my channel to be taken from me since I do this full time now. I believe that I did a great job of being very considerate, very careful, very sensitive about the way in which I've been covering this topic as it pertains to Charlie Kirk and his family. Regardless of how you feel about or felt about Charlie Kirk as a person, I have my criticisms of him as well. But he was still a human being. I had all my reservations like many other people on the left and the right and independents. Many people have already pointed out the inconsistencies. I've already made like 4 or 5 videos on this, so we're not going to repeat any of the inconsistencies from them claiming he broke the gun, that the shooter broke the gun down on the roof, and claiming that Charlie Kirk got shot from the front when it's clear that he got shot from the side. all the different decoys. We're not gonna, if you want to see any of that, then you have to go to my other videos. This is about, all of this is going to be new information. All right. One thing we really have to stop doing is ignoring common sense, ignoring our intuition. Because again, sometimes we just got to take a step back and just analyze things, because by design, the media will throw a whole lot of things. They'll bombard us with information, so many different possibilities to confuse us on purpose. Like this book right here, which Candace Owens ironically has recommended this book. I recommended that people read this book, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. This book is extremely powerful, and it talks about how they go about implementing these psyops, as we'll get into in this video. And when we take a step back and we take a look at Charlie Kirk and who Charlie Kirk was and how he got to where he was, it is clear as day to me that Charlie Kirk was 100% a plant. He was selected just like Martin Luther King. And I'm not even comparing the two to say that they're the same. It's two different eras, and we're in the age of social media. Martin Luther King Jr. was not, but they were used almost in similar ways. They were selected for similar reasons. If you have seen my Martin Luther King Jr. documentary, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of people don't even know about Charlie Kirk and where he came from, Turning Point USA, and how he got to where he was. So let's just back up a little bit and let's talk a little bit about Charlie Kirk and how he got to where he was. Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA in 2012, a day after he graduated from high school at the age of 18 years old. Now, I've asked you all this question before, and I'm going to ask it again. How many 18-year-olds do you know? How many 25-year-olds? So 7 years later, how many 25-year-olds do you know running a multi-million-dollar business organization empire with hundreds and hundreds of employees closely tied to the president? Zero. I know zero. I'm not saying that it's impossible for young people to be successful, but if you are, we have to stop believing that these people that we see placed in front of us, that if we just worked hard enough that we can get there. That's not how this works. That it's just not. Stop it. Stop it. Charlie Kirk was selected from the beginning because Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA was not even founded by just him. It was also founded by another gentleman called Bill or William Montgomery, who was 72 years old in 2012 when he met Charlie Kirk. The story goes he met Charlie Kirk after seeing Charlie Kirk speak at some sort of local small college. He saw the star power. He saw the potential, right? And he decided to convince Charlie Kirk, whom he just met, to not only not go to college, but he also convinced him to start Turning Point USA. And a pattern that we're going to notice here is a couple of things. A lot of these people that's placed in front of us, they either go through college, they either take the college route, and they come out on the other side as a fraternity or a sorority member, or they do not go the college route, but somehow they still become affiliated with a lot of these fraternity members, so to speak. Within just 4 years of starting Turning Point USA, which allegedly started in a garage, and then this guy by the name of Bill Montgomery apparently provided this organization its seed funding, because Bill Montgomery is originally from Illinois and has a history as a marketing entrepreneur. So he used some of his funds to help launch this 501c3, Turning Point USA. And within 4 years, it is said that Charlie Kirk would run into Donald Trump Jr. And just like that, he is the direct assistant to Donald Trump Jr. in 2016 for the campaign for an entire year. By that point in time, they were receiving millions of dollars. For those of you who don't know, there is a subsidiary organization of Turning Point USA called Turning Point Action. Turning Point Action is what you would call a 501c4. Why is that important? Because the difference, or some of the biggest differences that people in the political sphere care the most about between a 501c3, which is what Turning Point USA is, and a 501c4 is that 501c4s not only have more flexibility when it comes to lobbying. And for those of you who don't know what lobbying is essentially, in a layman's term, it's legal bribery. It's being able to offer money and other means to convince politicians and political organizations to vote this way, to support this bill, to swing this way in the election. 501c3s are a lot more limited in their ability to do this. Why is this important? Because Charlie Kirk's organization was receiving millions of dollars, not right away, but or at least public information within the 3 or 4 period gap of their inception, they would start receiving millions and millions of dollars by unknown persons and entities because you're allowed to be anonymous. This Bill Montgomery guy actually passed away on July 28th, 2020, which if you've been following my channel for easily the past 3 or 4 months, then you would know that we've been paying close attention to individuals that have passed away, especially over the past 5 years since 2020 during the month of July, because it seems to be a lot of that. Not that everything will have to be a conspiracy, but we just recognize patterns on this channel. It is also very important to note that Charlie Kirk was actually not even liked by a lot of traditional conservatives at the time. A lot of people forget this because conservatives a decade ago used to being something completely different, right? It wasn't as provocative, right? It wasn't as divisive, right? And some could even argue that it wasn't as political as it pertains to those that were followers of Christ. Charlie Kirk comes along and he was a lot more divisive than what a lot of people were accustomed to. It is also important to note that 501c4s are also allowed to bring in as much money as possible with anonymous donors and use that money to get out to vote. Not only that, it is also important to note that there has been a lot of questionable behavior and suspicions surrounding Turning Point USA's funding practices. It says here, by ProPublica, at this Trump-favored charity, financial reporting is questionable and insiders are cashing in. Charlie Kirk's nonprofit Turning Point USA has made misleading financial claims and gets his quote-unquote independent audits from its co-founder Bill Montgomery's former business associate. It has enriched several of its top leaders as it pushes Trump's message. And this was done back in 2020. And look at the date, July 21st. We've talked about that many times over the years. This date just keeps coming up. Let's see here. This election, one of President Donald Trump's most influential advocates is 26-year-old Charlie Kirk, who has developed a unique bond with the First Family. The conservative star dines with the president at Mar-a-Lago and rang in the new year there. During each of the last 2 winters, he used the club to hold a formal fundraiser for his nonprofit Turning Point USA that featured Donald Trump Jr. At a Turning Point event in June, the president, addressing the crowd, said, "Let us show our appreciation to my good friend Charlie. I'll tell you, Charlie is some piece of work who is mobilizing a new generation of pro-American student activists." On a Turning Point webpage soliciting donations, Trump Jr., a close friend of Kirk's, is quoted as saying, "I'm convinced that the work by Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk will win back the future of America." The tax-exempt charity says its mission is to educate students about the importance of fiscal responsibility, free markets, and capitalism. As its profile has risen, its revenue has ballooned, reaching $28 million, a 7-fold increase in just 4 years. But behind the scenes, Turning Point USA has entered into questionable financial arrangements, particularly involving Kirk's mentor, William Montgomery, the lesser-known co-founder who is credited with discovering Kirk. Montgomery, 80, an Illinois entrepreneur.
80 years old, he discovered a young teenage Kirk. See, it's some hanky-panky, some perverse shit right there.
And one-time Tea Party activist is one of 3 Turning Point insiders who have won lucrative deals from the group to handling its printing, payroll processing, and fundraising. The nonprofit has also made misleading assertions about its finances to state and federal regulators, according to interviews and an explanation of tax business records. Charities are required to conduct annual independent audits, certifying their books are sound in order to fundraise in more than a dozen states. But the accounting firm Turning Point uses has engaged in multiple business relationships with Montgomery, who for years served as the nonprofit's treasurer. The dynamic, experts say, imperils independence and undermines the credibility of Turning Point's financial statements, including its federal tax returns, an issue of significance at a moment when more and more cash is flowing into the organization's coffers. This raises real questions about the legitimacy of the return. Philip Hackney, a University of Pittsburgh School of Law professor who formerly worked in the IRS Chief Counsel's office, told ProPublica. It makes it difficult to trust what is reported and begins to raise the possibility that it's a fraudulent statement. And it is also said that at this time, Charlie Kirk was already making close to $500,000 a year, and that was 5 years ago. Now let's get into some of my suspicions when it comes to Charlie Kirk And once again, do I know for a fact that he is a Freemason? No, I do not know for a fact. Do I know for a fact that Candace Owens is an Eastern Star? No, I don't know that for a fact. But I have my suspicions. Once again, Candace Owens is an individual who I just so happens to agree with on most of the things that she says. From a political perspective, from a theory perspective, I tend to agree with her most of the time. But we have to question everybody and everything that's placed in front of us. And the Catholicism thing when it comes to Candace Owens, I've voiced many times on this channel. I just can't seem to understand. And I believe that's part of the reason why she's being supported by the algorithm and placed on such a pedestal. But let's start to talk about some of the things that really started to stand out to me. I already spoke about the fact that I watched Erica Kirk's tribute video to Charlie Kirk, and I was expecting something super emotional, and I was going to be really heartfelt, and I knew it was going to be very heartfelt, and I was prepared for that. You know, I got teared up when everything first happened. I received some people making fun of me for getting emotional that this man was assassinated in front of his family. But then I watched this video by Erica, and everything else changed for me. Again, I thought I was very polite yesterday. Gloves are off today. I'm not going to be nice about this today. I'm going to be honest. You all don't come to me to be nice. You come to me for what I really believe. And I'm going to give you all what I really believe about this video. I noticed first and foremost that she's wearing black and white. That's the first thing that really stood out to me. I told you all yesterday in my live that I also noticed that there were 2 Donald Trump hats sitting on the table, which felt like an infomercial. And then there was a Donald Trump picture sitting back on the shelf. And she went out of her way to let Donald Trump know that Charlie Kirk really loved him and that everybody should support Donald Trump, which came off as very interesting and very weird and odd and awkward. And in my opinion, her crying came off as very fake. I didn't see a lot of emotion. I saw acting. I'm just being honest with you all. I saw acting. And for those of you who may need a reminder, Charlie Kirk was actually wearing white and black the day of the assassination. And as we know, white and black is really big in Freemasonry when it comes to duality. But for those of you that are still yet not convinced, just keep watching. Because also at this event, they had these hats here, just like they had them in the quote-unquote infomercial or the quote-unquote tribute video from Erica Kirk to Charlie Kirk. At least that's what they're telling us that video was supposed to be. I wasn't convinced, and I know many other people weren't convinced either. Check out the hats here. You have 3 rows of Donald Trump hats, and they all say 47. Each hat equals the number 11. 11, 11, 11 equals 33. 33, and as we know, 33 is a huge number in Freemasonry. But for those of you who are not convinced, keep watching, because we're going to see how many times the number 33 has not only come up in this case, but all these other situations that we've already covered on the channel. But I'm going to bring them back to your recollection so we're all on the same page. The suspect in Charlie Kirk's murder in custody after 33-hour manhunt. The Jeffrey Epstein thing. U.S. House panel releases 33,000 pages of Epstein files. If you all remember this, while Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails on her private email server. We briefly covered the 9/11 situation. As we all know, that happened in 2001, but what many people don't know is that not the Twin Towers, the construction began for those buildings in 1968. Ghislaine Maxwell found guilty of recruiting underage girls to be SA'd by Jeffrey Epstein, or sexually assaulted. I'm on Patreon by Jeffrey Epstein. Check this out. 33 witnesses, and Epstein allegedly impregnated was to have 20 women at a time impregnated at his 33,000 square foot Zorro Ranch. Or how about this situation that we just covered? We've covered this multiple times on the channel. Left-wing MacArthur Foundation gave $3.3 million, so there's that 33 number, to Charlotte's Mecklenburg County to reduce jail population, which is what allegedly led to this gentleman right here being released. That's the only reason he was arrested so many times and released, because they were trying to reduce jail population. And then this situation happened, which, again, I gave my opinions on this. This was 100% a psyop. And we covered this a little bit a few months ago, the New York shooting that took place just a couple of months ago. And as I told you all, one of the biggest things that stood out to me was the floor that it happened on. On Wednesday morning, Deputy Mayor Kaz Daughtry recounted the heroic actions of the NFL employee who called his coworkers after he was shot in the lobby, the maid who somehow avoided being shot in the tragic circumstances that led to the death of Hyman, a young worker on the 33rd floor. The shooter accidentally took the elevator to the 33rd floor by accident. And look at the date. Charlie Kirk was a plant from the jump. That's the reason he was able to build such a huge empire. Turning Point USA has over 3,500 chapters. It has over 1,000 employees, over an 80 million annual budget. Do you all understand how huge of a juggernaut that is? And Charlie Kirk, it's not like he was managing all these people. That's virtually impossible, right? He was the person, he was a star. He was the person that ran the show. Not to mention that they've also made it clear here. Albert Pike has also said, whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him, right? What have we been calling that? The Hegelian dialectic. We're going to create the problem so we can give you the solution. Charlie Kirk was being used as a front to do a few things, in my opinion. He was being used to sort of almost blur the lines between quote unquote Christianity or being a follower of Jesus Christ, while also accepting those that are not followers of Jesus Christ. So when they throw out these terms like Judeo-Christian values, which some people say, well, that just means that, you know, the Jewish religion and the Christian religion both recognize that, you know, they both acknowledge the 10 Commandments. But the problem with that is, if your religion is stating that you believe that Jesus Christ is not only not God, but you believe that Jesus Christ is burning in hell, and I believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and will return and is our Savior, we have nothing in common. Our religion should not be combined in any circumstances. That's not what Charlie Kirk said. In fact, there's a tweet I want to show you. Here's a tweet here from Charlie Kirk. He says, we talk about a golden age in America. I am an evangelical Christian, but I pray the new Pope will help usher in a new golden age of Christianity. If the new Pope defends the faith, defends the West, defends biology and eternal truths, I will be his biggest fan. Hold up. Let's back up here for a sec. He made this tweet on May 25th or May 8th of 2025. Charlie Kirk is so over DEI, so over people claiming that there's more than two genders, which we were all tired of that. We're all on the same page there. But he's so tired of it that he's willing to accept a Pope who is a heretic, who is of the Catholicism faith, which is not true Christian, which is not true followers of Jesus. If you read your scriptures, you should know all the falsehoods of Catholicism, which my understanding of Charlie Kirk, he was a Protestant. Why would you be willing to accept the Pope who, in my opinion, worships Lucifer, has an indirect hand in human trafficking and other evil practices? But you're going to pretend like you don't know these things. So if this person is willing to acknowledge that there are only two genders, which there is only two genders, if he's willing to acknowledge things that are actually true about basic biology and reality, not even spirituality, what is this mystical mystery religion that Charlie Kirk is trying to push on us? Not to mention, there's a gentleman by the name of Jack Hibbs, who was a pastor based out of, I believe, California, who is very good friends with Charlie Kirk. He's allowed Charlie Kirk to use his platform to push politics onto people. Jack Hibbs has stated himself that if you are a Christian or a follower of Jesus, you are required to vote. And if you do not vote, you are not a true follower of Jesus. Says here, real life, Jack Hibbs, vote biblically. Politics are a part of a religion in such a country as this, and Christians must do their duty to their country as a part of their duty to God. God will bless or curse this nation according to the curse Christians take in politics. As an American and native Californian, I grew up being taught to honor the flag and to defend my country, blah, 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 blah. And we go down here. It says here, our forefathers founded this nation upon a Judeo-Christian worldview derived from the Bible. What is this Judeo stuff coming from? For those who are Christians, the Bible is to be our guide in this upcoming election. Have we forgotten that we are to do and act righteously? Voting is the right thing to do. Our vote reveals our belief system, but sitting out this election will reveal something more: disobedience. And then they misquote, they misrepresent the Bible. Whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, to him it is sin. James 4:17. Taking this text completely out of context, let me first say that I am a monarchist. I believe in a ruling and reigning king, and I am awaiting his return any day now. But until he comes, I am to pray and vote for righteousness. Thus, I will ask you, fellow Christians, to apply the following litmus test to the two candidates in this election. I like to call it Trinity of Truth test. And then he has these things here. This is insanity, because I can almost guarantee you that just about any politician that makes it to the point where they're in the primaries, they're probably not going to be quote unquote righteous. So what if neither candidate is righteous? What should you do? And even if you decide to vote, you shouldn't be obligated to vote strictly off religion if neither person is righteous. So once again, Charlie Kirk was placed in a position to sort of blur the lines between politics and spirituality or religion. Once again, your faith, they're supposed to be one and the same. Donald Trump is representing Jesus in some case when he's not. Donald Trump is not a follower of Jesus based on the things that I've seen him support. When his wife is giving statements about how they miraculously, ran into each other in Israel, but they didn't know each other at the time. Israel just keeps coming up with these people.
Back chair. That person that's sitting right
We're
next
gonna
to
get
you
into that
is meant
next.
to sit right next to
Yeah,
you.
Israeli.
I'm telling you to figure out why, but
Israel is her handler. And I don't know if Israel put her into the Trump organization and she became Miss Arizona or whatever, and then they sicked her, but they sicked her on Charlie. I don't know if it's Israel and Trump or just Trump pushed her towards Charlie, but they definitely introduced her to Charlie like Epstein was introducing people to people, and we know that was for blackmail and things of that nature. So she just was a blonde bimbo or floozy, what's called a honey trap that Israel used on Charlie.
just know that nothing is by mistake. Nothing. I will never forget the time I was in Israel with my husband. That was the second time, but the first time with my mother on a pilgrimage. And I was standing in the ticket line. And I remember looking behind me, and in the snake of the ticket line was a guy who looked very familiar. I had no idea who he was. And I told my mom, this guy looks so familiar. And as a typical mother, she said, go and say hi. No, we were late for our flight, and I'm not going to come off like a crazy person that's just weird. That ended up being Charlie.
How surprising.
Nothing is by coincidence. Now, did we know that? No, not until we were like 3 months into our relationship and looking at timestamps, seeing that both of us were in Israel at the same time. But nothing is by coincidence.
Did you all know that this same person, Erica Kirk, was apparently, I believe, in 2012, that's right, the same year that Turning Point USA took off, apparently she was like in the pageant, the same pageant that Donald Trump was running or owned. What are the chances that she already knew Trump, would become married to Charlie Kirk, who would later meet Donald Trump and be the direct assistant to Donald Trump Jr. in 2016? Y'all just so happened to be running in the same circles by accident, was in Israel at the same time by accident. Not saying that it's impossible. What do I think this entire Charlie Kirk thing was done for? I've given other reasons, such as law changes and things of that sort, but something you can't forget is also the surveillance thing. We've talked about that with Palantir and Peter Thiel, who was the guy who's being accused, and I'm going to accuse him as well as being the person that created J.D. Vance, a huge person behind J.D. Vance. Nick Fuentes exposed that first. But here we are with Charlie Kirk, who I also believe was a creation, who was quote-unquote assassinated. But because there's so many decoys and different people that they arrested and they grabbed and they thought did it, and the camera quality on the college campus is so grainy, so we just don't know what to do. And some people are saying it happened over here and it's suspicious. We need more surveillance. We need better surveillance. That's another angle that I believe they're going to take this. I do. You look at some of the most famous people in history, not that I'm comparing Charlie Kirk to these people necessarily, but I just want you to pay attention to something. Malcolm X, he was fine until he went to the Mecca, came back and realized maybe white people, generally speaking, isn't the devil. Maybe they aren't evil, intrinsically. Maybe it's the people that's running the system, the elite individuals that are running the system. And then he was out of there. When you look at people like Martin Luther King, I have a whole entire documentary that I got a bonus edition on its way. He seemed to be just fine until he started getting involved with the Vietnam War. Charlie Kirk was speaking out. I know there's people out there that don't believe he was assassinated. I'm still on the train. I believe that he was. And we've spoken many times about why I believe that. And there's good reason to believe that. He started speaking out against the Iran war. He was not a fan of it. And he started to ask questions, very legitimate questions about Israel. And look what happened to him. Once again, these are just my thoughts. If you are on YouTube, I heavily censored this video. If you want the uncensored version, once again, to our Patreon members, This is one of those type of videos where you're either going to gain a lot of subscribers or you're going to lose a lot of subscribers. And I guess we're going to find out together by the end of this video what the outcome will look like for me. We spent quite a bit of time talking about Mr. Charlie Kirk, but we spent very little time talking about the person who is now the CEO of his company, Turning Point USA, Miss Erica Kirk. And I must tell you, it's very early where I am, but I couldn't wait to record this video because I found some very interesting information about Erica Kirk, and I can almost guarantee you by the end of this video, you will find out several things about Erica Kirk that you will not only find interesting, but I guarantee you that you've never heard before. Some of this stuff you've probably heard. A lot of it I can guarantee you have not. And it's videos like this that will further support the claim that a lot of these people, in my opinion,
This young man dug the deepest I've seen anybody dig into Erica Kirk. What that let me know is it's impossible that he dug up more information than Candace Owens and those other big Republican players. They're hiding everything he about to say. They're hiding about her.
Opinion are placed in front of us. We think that they're regular, everyday people, come from good families, work hard to get to where they are, but these people are playing roles, in my opinion. And yes, we've already covered the fact that she was wearing a Freemason ring during her video where she was supposedly or allegedly rubbing the hands of Charlie Kirk in the casket, which I do not believe that was Charlie Kirk. Yes, we've already discussed her very odd and unusual behavior during her tribute video and also during the memorial service. I found her behavior to be very odd, which, by the way, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go to her video and I wanted to see a woman that was grieving, and I was going to feel really bad, and I hated that she had to go through this. But I went to the video and that's not what I found. It was very odd. I'm not going to ignore my intuition and my human instincts, and everything's telling me that woman is acting. And it turns out that I'm not the only person that believes that, as many other women and mothers and widows, and not only that, but white widows. If you all, for those of you who want to say that it's a cultural disconnect, there are many other white widows that also have watched this video that I have later found out that all feel the same thing. Her behavior was odd, but I digress. We've already discussed Donald Trump's odd behavior, not just on the White House lawn when he was asked about how he was doing less than 2 days after Charlie Kirk was supposedly taken out. And he said that not only is he doing very well, but he immediately deflected to some ballroom that they're building on the White House campus. Not to mention Donald Trump dancing and celebrating on stage at the memorial as if this isn't once again a memorial. But I digress. We're not going to talk about any of that. I have a lot of new information for you because we've also already covered that Erica Kirk won the 2012 Miss USA pageant, which was owned by Trump, which, by the way, in The Evil Truth Behind the Modeling Industry on Patreon that I dropped several weeks ago, we actually discussed what actually happens to many models, as many models was interviewed a decade ago, and they exposed a lot of the people that assaulted them and what it actually takes to become a top model and to actually win. And how Donald Trump, we also covered in this series, how Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein actually worked in this industry together, both overseeing and hand selecting themselves many of the women that modeled. I want you to keep that in mind for later in this video. But I do want to share that Erica Kirk actually shared on a podcast one time that she not only never competed or participated in any pageants before, but she also never done any modeling at any point in her life until one random day she received an invitation in the mail to start doing it. So the story is something that takes many women years and years and years to perfect and to accomplish. Erica Kirk was able to join and win Miss USA or Miss Arizona within a year or two in the business. Now, once again, in that Patreon video that I dropped a few weeks ago, many of the models talk about how there's only about 1 to 2% of all models, regardless of what they look like, regardless of how good they are, that actually wins, because it's more than just your performance that gets you there. But I digress, because it gets weirder. Erica Kirk was also a casting director at the same exact time that she was modeling. Now, it's not clear if she was a casting director for Trump or not, but at the same time that all this was happening, she also owned a ministry that partnered with the U.S. military in Romania. And in the same area where they were working, the locals were accusing many evangelical ministries of kidnapping children. Now, that doesn't mean that Erica Kirk did this, and I'm not accusing her of orchestrating these things or being behind this, But it is responsible for me to state that during the same time and the same area that her ministry was working, many of them were being accused of kidnapping and trafficking children. And yes, the responsible thing to say is many locals could be lying. That's true. But these children were being sent to Israel, the UK, and other unknown islands. I also want to state that Erica Kirk also visited the Pentagon in 2012 while she was modeling.
So I've been able to travel to the Pentagon. I've been able to meet General Salazar, who's actually out here in Arizona. And I've also been able to donate a Johnny's Locker to the Sojourner Center, which you're looking at right now. Wow. So there's been a lot of things that have been going on, from working in the military to traveling to just being able to get out.
Well, here's another good one for you. Did any of you know that before any of this, any of the pageants, any of the modeling, Erica Kirk, before she was Erica Kirk, was actually an actress on television? Here's a clip from Bravo's reality show, Summer House. Well, how about this? Did you all know that Erica Kirk's mom not only worked closely with the government, but specifically with Homeland Security and the Department of Defense?
Can I ask a question? It's off topic. How did your mom choose Phoenix?
So she chose to move to Phoenix from Ohio because there was more of an opportunity for a female business owner out here. Especially from the standpoint of she was getting involved with the government, so Homeland Security and Department of Defense. And so she had other business partners that were out here that were already in that industry.
In fact, do you even know who Erica Kirk's parents are altogether? It says here, Erica Kirk's parents are Kent and Melanie Francevy, or Francevy. Kent Francevy was a prominent figure in the defense industry, having chaired Raytheon's Israel division and been involved in significant military projects, including the Iron Dome. Melanie Francevy's background is less publicly detailed, but the family has been noted for their connections to conservative and pro-Israel circles. Erica's upbringing in this environment, combined with her own public roles, has placed her at the center of discussions regarding influence and alleged covert operations. Now, would you look at that? So that means not only was her family, currently her family is very well connected, but they're connected to Israel, the same foreign nation that many Americans are not rocking with right now, including myself. And I guess that could further explain Charlie Kirk's undeniable record over the years when it comes to Israel. I don't think many people ever thought that it was just strictly about the Bible. But this also means that Erica Kirk was successful and a millionaire well before she met Charlie Kirk, because of all these ventures that she was placed into before she met him. And now she is the CEO of Turning Point USA. But let's continue. Did you know that she is actually currently considered the most powerful woman in the country? And many are suggesting that she should run for vice president in 2028 alongside J.D. Vance, as many view Charlie Kirk as a future presidential candidate himself. And it also doesn't help when there are emails going out from Turning Point USA where Erica is stating that she will, quote unquote, carry Charlie's torch. But we'll see. Let's talk about Erica and Charlie's first date. Apparently, it was for a job interview only after a quote unquote, close friend recommended that Charlie should hire her as they were celebrating a new Turning Point USA location. This was back in 2018, which is only 2 years after Charlie and Trump started working together on Trump's campaign. Remember, at this time, Erica Kirk had already been working under Trump in the modeling industry. So it would make the most sense to me that either Trump or someone close to Trump recommended Erica.
Recommended my ass, sicked her on him, because he just a horny little toad. You feel what I'm saying? Couldn't get no goddamn Miss USA, little geek. So typical Israeli honey trap. And they got his little horny little ass, and they played him all the way to his death. His dumb ass never even knew he's living with a spy.
Storytelling. So we're here at Bill's Burgers in New York City. And right near this very table is the first time Dad met Mama. And it started as a job, and I was asking all these questions, philosophy, religion, Jesus. And then I realized Mama was beautiful and smart and elegant and Christ-like. And so I said, forget this job interview. I want to date you. And I said, I have enough friends. And that's where your journey started.
And I've already covered the weird story of the 72-year-old man.
Do you think that the Israelis, the Mossad, didn't know that sending her in there, her titties out, little skimpy skirt on, to do a job interview, that he said himself, he interviewing her, they're like, oh man, she's beautiful, she's Christ-like, you're Christ-like, I think I want to take you out. Man, if you don't get on with that BS, and he fell for that.
And that supposedly started Turning Point USA with an 18-year-old Charlie Kirk after convincing him not to go to college. But I digress. Anyways, Erica has also shared the story of seeing Charlie in Israel. So there's the Israel plug once again. And notice that he looked familiar, but was too afraid to approach him. And then they would run into each other again in America, supposedly. And if I haven't blown your mind yet, keep listening. Did you know that Charlie Kirk's family was closely and heavily tied to Donald Trump as well, as his parents worked really, really closely in the Trump Tower? It says here, late Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk's parents were longtime Trump allies. Charlie Kirk's parents worked with Donald Trump long before the presidency. Unlike their extraordinarily famous son, Charlie's parents did not spend a lot of time in the spotlight. Not much is known about his mother, Kimberly Ann Kirk, but we do know that Charlie's father was Robert K. Kirk, and Robert had a pretty strong connection with Trump long before his son did. It's unclear exactly how Charlie and Trump became acquainted, but it's likely that it was through his father and the work he once did for the Trump organization. Kimberly's career and her affiliations are mostly unknown, while Robert was a businessman who worked as a project architect manager on Trump Tower in New York City. Now, would you look at that? Would you look at that? Once again, as I always say, it's the weird connections. How many people do you know are able to create a multi-million, well over $100 million yearly annual budget organization by the time they're 25 years old? Not saying that it's impossible, not saying it's never been done before, but you have to be connected to the right people. You have to be selected to do these type of things in this world. What we were taught as children, how you can do it and you can make it and you can become whatever you want, it's a lot of stuff that was left out, like privilege, like connections, like being a part of these secret organizations and societies. But not only that, Erica attended a Jesuit university, which is Regis University, located in Denver, Colorado. And her grandfather is a guy by the name of Carl Kenneth Franzvee, who was the vice president of American Bank and Note Corporation, which is the same one tied to secure printing and IDs, and was Grand Chief of the Independent Order of Vikings, knighted by the King of Sweden. But we go a little bit deeper. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA UK launched at the Royal Automobile Club under Prince Michael of Kent, Grand Master of Freemasonry. George Farmer, who was Candace Owens' his husband, sat as chairman, tied to Andrew Tate long before Candace. So it begs to differ, begs the question, is Erica Kirk a CIA Mossad plant cosplaying as a trad wife that was hand-selected to be Charlie Kirk's wife? One could even argue similar to how Melania was hand-selected for Mr. Donald Trump himself. But I'm not done. The biggest red flag, in my opinion, whether you all agree with me or not, is Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk's children. Now, I noticed this before, but it's really stood out to me since. Can anybody, anywhere, on any platform, Google, Instagram, YouTube, interviews, can anybody find a solid photo of what Erica and Charlie Kirk's children looks like? Yep, you heard me right. Because that matters. Because you have some people who are going as far to say that they believe that this Erica Kirk and this Charlie Kirk relationship was completely arranged, and that they probably weren't together like the public thought that they were. Much like how a lot of celebrity relationships are arranged to make power couples, to bring in more fans, more attention, a better dynamic, because whenever you have a spouse, it just looks better. Sort of how that works in the industry, in the music industry or in Hollywood. What makes it any different here? I went to Erica Kirk's Instagram, and just about everywhere I went to look, it's very difficult to find any photo, not only of their children, whether they're in interviews, whether they're out to eat, whether they're at the zoo, whether they're walking in the park, they always have their children's face hidden. But it's also very difficult to find any pictures of Erica Kirk pregnant. Even though it's easy to fake pregnancies, it was very difficult to find that. Now, for those of you who want to be devil's advocate, you're going to say, well, I mean, a lot of parents do that, right? Like I know for a fact, J. Cole, the rapper J. Cole, it's very difficult to find his children anywhere on the internet as well, right? But I think you can find 1 or 2 photos of what they look like. It's because he wants to keep his children out of the spotlight. He don't want to ever use it. He's talked about this in his music over the years. He does not want his children to be used to gain attention or sympathy or more fans. He wants people to like him for his music or dislike him for his music. He don't want to use his family for that reason. Are you all going to make that same argument for a person like Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk, who encourage people to get married, have children, build a legacy? You're going to not show what your children look like? And it's very, very orchestrated. In every video and photo, they go out their way to make sure that their children's faces is completely turned. They'll cut the video short before their child's face is shown. That's weird to me. That's weird to me. Now, for those of you who want to say, all right, Didi, what's your point? What are you getting at? Well, I don't fully know what I'm getting at outside of the fact that, once again, there are many more red flags when it comes to this situation. Things aren't adding up, and there's a certain picture that's being painted here. And the more and more we investigate, it's becoming more and more obvious to me that these people that are placed in front of us are not who we think, even though we want to believe that so badly. They're just not, right? So at the very least, that's what I'm stating. Right? Will I go as far to say that this relationship was arranged? I'm open to believing that. I'm also open to believing that this assassination may have not been an assassination, right? I'm not going to full out come on and just say that as of yet, but I'll include the video that's convinced me that Charlie Kirk may have even been in on it. I'll include that version on Patreon because, of course, for obvious reasons, I can't include that on YouTube. But I will say this, I'll make it free for everybody to watch. You don't have to pay. You just have to become a free member to watch it. So I will include that on Patreon, and you do not have to pay a dime to watch it. But yeah, and I want to state this again. I made a post yesterday. Yes, I'm skeptical of Candace Owens, like many of you are, because she has incredible reach, and you can't get reach like that as we've seen unless you're controlled, right? The Catholicism piece, I don't understand it. It's cringe. It's like I'm with Candace 99% of the things that she talks about, and then she starts talking about Catholicism. I'm like, Candace, stop. Like I start twitching. I'm like, I don't get it. You have a team, the level of research, and you're talking about this Mary stuff. Like, it's odd to me. It's odd. So I'm not saying that Candace Owens is one of us, but I have to give credit where it's due. She's talking about all the things that we talk about on this channel. Freemasonry, Candace has covered that multiple times on her channel. She's talked about Israel. She's talked about the people who run Hollywood. She has talked about it. Yes, sometimes they put people in position to pretend as if they're for us, but they're controlled our position. But typically in those roles, they take us towards the truth, and then they just long enough where we start to trust them, and then they derail. They take us in that direction, or they take us in that direction, or they take us backwards. In my opinion, based on what I've been following with Candace, not only has she continued to go towards I'll put it this way, the same direction I'm going as it pertains to trying to seek the truth, but Candace Owens has also encouraged other people to do their own research and not take her own word. That's not normally what people say if they're trying to trick you. That's all I'm going to say. Y'all in the comment section, as always, though, give me your thoughts, man. Once again, the uncensored version and the extended version of this can be found on Patreon.
What all he done brought out today, Candace Owens is holding back. Why she haven't brought all that to light? They keep saying, oh, Israel could have had something to do with this. Well, if you bring out everything this man brought to the table, look like she's a Messiah who was planted and purposely put next to that young man. So now I gotta look at Candace Owens and see what type of. She might just know that if she bring all that out, the whites gonna really attack her if she tell the truth about that white lady.
Everybody wants to know, did Israel kill Charlie Kirk? No, don't be ridiculous. A lone gunman did it. Always a lone gunman. A young man, unstable, angry, looking for attention. His own father turned him in. Case closed. That's the script. That's the headline. That's the truth we're all supposed to swallow. Neat, tidy, packaged, ready to go. But here's the problem. Neat and tidy almost never means true. Every time the story is wrapped up this quickly, you should start sniffing for smoke. And sure enough, the moment Kirk's body was cold, the whispers began. Israel. Could Israel have had a hand in this? Absurd, they said. Insane, they said. Stupid. Netanyahu himself had to go on live television to shout it down. And if you saw that interview, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He wasn't calm. He wasn't confident. He was flustered, defensive, repeating himself like a man who knows the rumor cuts too close to the bone. And here's the kicker. On paper, it makes no sense. Charlie Kirk was Israel's guy. He spent years worshiping at their altar. He told students Palestinians don't exist. He smeared critics as radicals, spread their propaganda, flew on their trips, cashed their donors' checks. He said Israel was America's best friend. Over and over. He was loyal. But loyalty in this game doesn't mean forever. Loyalty means obedience. And the second you step out of line, you're not a loyal ally anymore. You're a liability. And Charlie Kirk, America's loudest campus Zionist, made the fatal mistake of asking questions. Epstein? Mossad? October 7th? Gaza? He started inviting Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly on stage. He started letting Dave Smith call Gaza what it really is, the slaughter of a captive people. And that was it. The alarms went off. Donors flipped. Zionist bloggers... And now watch what happens. The media points left. The right points back. Social media collapses into chaos. Everyone screaming at everyone else. Deep State, MAGA, Antifa, CIA. No one agrees, no one unites. No one looks at the one country that always benefits from division. Israel. Because while Americans lose their minds over Charlie Kirk, Israel is still in Gaza, still bombing, still starving children, still bulldozing homes. Business as usual. That's the genius of it. They don't even have to deny it convincingly. Netanyahu just shrugs and says, stupid, absurd, and that's enough. Because the real trick isn't to prove innocence. It's to stir the pot so no one cares. And boy, did it work. So let's ask the old Latin question. Cui bono? Who benefits? Not the shooter, not his father, not America. The people who benefit are the same people who always benefit. The same people who suddenly don't have to worry about 3,500 campus chapters shifting against them. The same people who saw Kirk's hesitation as a threat. Because if Charlie Kirk, their golden boy, could doubt, then every conservative student in America could doubt too. That's the nightmare scenario. And what happened right after his death? Shapiro stepped up, ready with his new tour. Donors stopped complaining. Turning Point USA suddenly had new handlers.
Now remember, Charlie probably started having some real white supremacist views towards Israel, that Israel was finding out how he really felt through his wife, which Charlie would never believe that she would give him up. Hit on a story of Samson and Delilah. He never thought that his beautiful wife, who loved him so dearly and had his kids, would turn him over to his killers. That was a terrible mistake. She told his handlers the truth, how he really felt about the Jews.
The machine didn't miss a beat. The blood wasn't even dry before the replacement program was rolling. But hey, remember, it was a lone gunman. Always a lone gunman. Isn't it amazing how the lone gunman always seems to clear the field for the most powerful people alive? Kennedy, King, Malcolm, now Kirk. Just random nobodies with perfect timing, doing the dirty work history demands. Nothing suspicious here. And while Americans rage at each other, left versus right, MAGA versus woke, CIA versus deep state, Israel carries on like nothing happened, bombing hospitals, cutting off water, starving. So, no, Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Don't say that. Don't even think it. It's absurd. It's insane. It's stupid. Just a coincidence that he broke ranks and then got silenced. Just a coincidence that his enemies are smiling now. Just a coincidence that while America tears itself apart over conspiracy theories, Israel keeps winning in Gaza. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to believe they pulled the trigger. You just have to look at who's still standing, still bombing, still collecting checks, while the rest of us drown in outrage. And when you do, the picture gets very clear, very fast.
Welcome to the Gray Zone Live. I'm here with Max Blumenthal in New York City. I'm Aaron Mate. We're doing this last minute with limited time, so we're going to get right into it. Max, you just came back from a meeting at the UN on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly with President of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian.
That's right. And just getting the word out about our stream on Twitter right now. We got about an hour because we're in studio in New York. And this was our chance to get together in person and be able to talk about some of the recent work we've been doing at the Gray Zone. And, you know, it's pretty much up to the studio. Otherwise, we'd stay for much longer. So, you know, we'll follow up on this. And we were going to have more studio time, but I was invited. There's no way that Iran can be accused of not abiding by an agreement that was invalidated. It's pure hypocrisy. And that was part of Pezeshkian's message. He focused heavily on the Gaza genocide, the assassinations by Israel, including in Qatar. Inside Iran, he mentioned the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh and said, how can you accuse us of being the chaos agents? The chaos is emanating from Israel. How can you accuse us of being terrorists when we're the victims of terrorism? He focused very heavily on the assassination program. He mentioned a book he read. I asked him directly about a speech given last Tuesday by Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who said that negotiations with the U.S. are pure folly and will only end up in more war, and it would be a declaration of surrender to re-enter negotiations with the U.S. And does that reflect his position, the position of the presidency? And I asked if he believed that Donald Trump had actually set a ruse in the last round of negotiations to lull Iran into a sense of false security so that they could be more easily targeted by the Israelis. And he didn't answer my question directly. He was clearly it sounded like he was leaving the door open for diplomacy, but he emphasized that they would only enter negotiations on certain terms and that they obviously don't trust the U.S. He brought up a book he read by someone named Mitchell Clark called Endless Wars. And the thesis of the book is that the U.S. will never cease its regime change wars because of its insatiable lust for resources. And then he said that no doubt the U.S. will attack Iran again, and Israel will attack Iran again, that they will defend themselves more vigorously than before. And he pointed to all of the social cohesion that took place when Israel attacked Iran without provocation in June, that sectors of Iranian society that didn't previously, that had harsh criticisms, if not total opposition to the Islamic Republic, came together in support of the military. And he pointed to that as a real basis of Iran's strength going into the next inevitable war. He, on my question later, who went off on Steve Witkoff, the U.S. negotiator, and basically called him a fraud and said that every time that he would meet with us, they wished they had recorded it. He would tell them one thing positive, and they would come out feeling positive, and then he'd go back to Washington and say another, which is something we've covered here a lot at the Gray Zone. So they don't obviously trust the Americans. And he also mentioned the possibility that Israel would target him for assassination. And he said that there are 5 people waiting to take his place, and that Iran is planned for every possible scenario. So Iran's on a war footing, and basically the figures who were invited there were the anti-war community in the U.S., including like guests we've had here. And the meeting was militarized. There were FBI agents in and all around the meeting. Then there was a bomb squad, NYPD, airport security to get into the hotel. The entire Midtown New York is heavily militarized right now for UNGA. Like I've never seen it before. I talked to someone who was at a meeting with Amnesty International who said there were snipers on the roof outside their meeting. I think, it's to provide security. It's not like they're trying to menace anybody, but
it's the first time the U.S. is protecting someone from the Israelis.
Exactly. I mean, the Secret Service just found thousands of SIM cards that were spying devices.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? Netanyahu just told Republican lawmakers on a Hasbara trip to Israel that Israel is in your phone. I guess he meant like Israeli technology is so great, but the subtext is like the golden pager he handed Trump. They're spying on us. They're very nervous about this meeting in particular. And Trump told a lie every second in his speech. He also called for peace in Gaza, but it's an empty gesture. And
Trump just announced another, 5 or 6 billion in weapons for
6
Israel.
billion.
Yeah, and Witkoff. I mean, Witkoff showed his true face at that fundraiser for, was it United Herzliya?
United Hatzalah.
Yeah, Hatzalah, when he gushed that a former head of Mossad had clapped for him. He was like, my mother would be so proud of me. I mean, that's Steve Witkoff, and that's what he's using his fake diplomacy to do. So Iran, Pezeshkian talked about Iran being prepared. How prepared do you think they are for another Israeli attack? And do you think that another Israeli attack on Iran is inevitable at this point?
There's a window that's probably between now and December that might have been pushed back because of the attack on Qatar. And that really complicated Israel's relations with all of the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, because they wonder, could they be next? That Israel's just is trying to establish itself as a regional hegemon and will attack anyone and seeks an imposed peace. So that really, and we'll see how far Qatar goes with its efforts to isolate Israel. They're trying to push them out of the European Football Association, which would be a huge blow, I think. But there's also the flotilla right now. The Samud flotilla is in the Mediterranean, and they're under attack by Israeli drones. They're dumping chemical weapons on them. They're basically doing everything short of killing them. They've defined them as kind of a terrorist entity.
Yeah.
And allegedly, the Italian government of Giorgia Meloni is sending a military ship to escort them because there are many Italian citizens in the flotilla. So that could also be another complicating factor. I don't know when I could predict an attack, but it really seems like the window is closing, and Israel has several considerations, but one of the main factors is midterm elections coming up, and they feel like they have Trump by the balls right now, and they don't want to waste the opportunity when it's clear now from transcripts of the Israelis, including Chief of Staff of the Israeli military, Eyal Zamir, that the Israelis knew they basically had a guarantee that if they attacked Iran unprovoked, that the U.S. would basically rescue them from the war they started.
Yeah. This came out from Israel recently. There was leaked transcripts of Israeli war cabinet meetings where basically Netanyahu, first of all, admitted that the whole nuclear claim that Iran was weeks or months away was a complete lie. He said maybe in years they might have something. So he undermined that lie that he told. And he said, yes, we have a unique window of opportunity to draw the U.S. in. And also he talked about the fact that Iran was rebuilding its air defenses from a previous Israeli attack. So that was the moment that he sees. Nothing to do with his false claim of a nuclear weapons program.
Yeah. Pezeshkian brought up moment during the negotiations with the Biden administration. I guess this was under Raisi, when in the middle of negotiations, Israel attacked the Natanz facility, like a terrorist attack, and blew up like 4,000 centrifuges. And he said, we escalated, we moved up our enrichment as retaliation, but we understood what the Israelis wanted to do is break off negotiations between us and the Americans. And so we needed to keep the door open for that. But at this point, I don't think the door is open. I think what Khamenei said is valid and true. And what he said back in May was also true, that any negotiations they entered into directly with the U.S. will be used by the Israelis to set a deadline for an attack. And that's the kind of pressure they're under. So I think they're just preparing for an inevitable military confrontation. I met with Pezeshkian last year, and I was among a small group of kind of like anti-war journalists. Most of the people in the meeting were corporate media zombies, and Lester Holt, Andrea Mitchell, Robin Wright from the New Yorker. And I mean, I don't want to knock all of them, but it was obvious that the Iranians were trying to send a message to the administration through these mainstream journalists. They're no longer trying to do that. They're trying to send a message to the American people, and including to parts of the Trump base. I mean, there were a number of conservatives in this meeting too, who are, anti-war, from think tanks and publications. And, I think a big missed opportunity for Iran would have been to have Pezeshkian in his UNGA speech mention that one of the Americans who lobbied most strongly and forcefully against the U.S. attack on Iran was Charlie Kirk. That would have been a way to kind of break through the information, the information blackout, because we only hear from like Netanyahu, Trump, and a few other leaders.
Well, that's a good seg into our next topic, unless you want to say anything more about your meeting today.
Well, I mean, while this meeting was taking place last night, there was a fireside chat with the former founder of the Al-Qaeda branch of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, aka Mohammed al-Jolani, who was the co-founder of ISIS. This is just a couple weeks after the 9/11 anniversary, and he was warmly welcomed at the Middle East Institute. Charles Lister was his host, longtime, basically Al-Qaeda lobbyist in Washington. And it really just shows the priorities of this government. They don't care that Al-Qaeda is in New York. They are much more hostile to someone like Pezeshkian, who wants negotiations, because he wants negotiations on shared terms, whereas Sharaa is willing to give up the whole store and basically lay down for Israel. That's all that counts.
Yeah, I mean, Sharaa, aka Mohammed al-Jolani, has said multiple times that us and Israel share the same enemies, which is Hezbollah and Iran, which was the whole point of the Syria dirty war, to destroy a state that was a part of the axis of resistance with Iran and Hezbollah, and also to draw them in, to bleed them so that Israel could be stronger, exactly as Israel is taking advantage of now openly. Netanyahu says what a wonderful thing it is. There is regime change, and there's a historic moment to go even further. But yeah, David Petraeus, former director of the CIA, sitting down with Sharaa, aka al-Jolani, and Petraeus said to him, "Your success is our success." And Petraeus also said that everything you've done since taking power has validated my argument. And what
Yeah.
was that? The argument
Yeah.
from Petraeus was that we should support the Al-Qaeda dominated insurgency in Syria. And my question was, like, as Jelani's forces, Sharah's forces, are killing hundreds, maybe thousands of people who belong to minority groups, namely so far the Alawites and the Druze. There have been at least 2 notorious massacres. In March, Alawites over 1,000 killed, and that's being conservative in my estimate.
Yeah.
And then in July, hundreds of Druze killed by Jelani's forces. Does Petraeus feel validated by that? Because he's doing exactly what his forces did throughout the war, is committing sectarian mass murder.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. This is supposed to be the coin master, the counterinsurgency master, and his counterinsurgency plan, which he introduced in 2015, was arm what he called moderate Al-Qaeda against ISIS. But it was actually arming Al-Qaeda against Damascus. And then what do they do after their insurgency succeeds? They go on a rampage against Syria's minorities. This is like, should be discrediting to Petraeus, who's discredited himself again and again and again, is one of the more corrupt figures to come out of a deeply corrupted military leadership. And, you know, al-Shara has come home to his boss.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a lot of people are saying, why wasn't there more of a process to bring al-Shara out, you know, like we had with other groups that were involved in insurgencies, including like the ANC in South Africa? Like the process began in 2012.
Yeah.
It's not a new thing.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about Charlie Kirk? You've been on a roll with all of your reporting on the pressure he faced in the last stages of his life from his pro-Israel donors, the second thoughts he was having about his prior support for Israel, and some really key details, including that you know, he refused the funding offer directly from Netanyahu. That billionaire Bill Ackman convened an intervention to try to lobby him. And your most recent article was that a top donor to his group, Turning Point USA, stopped support for Kirk right before he died.
Yeah, so let's just go back to the beginning, considering where we are right now on this story. So we've demonstrated all of those. We've reported all of that out. And now it's up to Charlie Kirk's kind of comms guy, Andrew Colvett, to spin all those stories that have been certified as fact. But it all started after Charlie Kirk's killing, with Netanyahu coming out and trying to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy and blame Islam and blame the radical left before even a suspect was arrested. And I introduced this story showing that actually Charlie Kirk loathed Netanyahu, citing a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, that actually Charlie Kirk was going insane from the amount of lobbying and pressure and manipulation that he was experiencing from Netanyahu's forces in the United States. And it was all borne out by Charlie Kirk's public statements. For example, he made one very important comment with Megyn Kelly on, I believe, August 6th of this year. And then I learned that those comments on August 6th came after this Hamptons struggle session influencer summit, which has so many layers to it. But what did we know about that influencer summit before I reported that? All we knew was what Bill Ackman said, which is, I was lucky enough to share a meal with Charlie Kirk. Just how deceptive can you be? It was just a meal. It turned out that Charlie Kirk actually lost it and accused one of his interlocutors, a Zionist fanatic named Natasha Hausdorff, who's a lawyer in the UK, whose job is basically to get as many protesters jailed as possible for Israel, was apparently screaming at Charlie Kirk, according to one source who was there. And he said that would be this is like moral blackmail. So I reported all that. Bill Ackman threw a tantrum. He wrote one of his textbook, 7,000 or 5,000 word Twitter posts, basically spinning the whole thing and saying, you know, he was very close to Charlie Kirk and it wasn't an intervention, blah, blah, blah. And then we learned that Charlie Kirk. And then Candace Owens goes live about that meeting and becomes the target. Like, the target isn't really on me, it's on her, because she has cachet in that world. I don't come from their world. I'm just gathering sources there. She becomes the target of like the entire Netanyahu apparatus in the US. When I say Netanyahu apparatus, I mean like it is representing Israel, but it's a faction within the Israeli power structure that has embedded itself into the Republican Trump wing of the Republican Party. And we now know who they are through my follow-up reporting to the second piece. So the third piece I did, it's two parts. First, Charlie Kirk lost his biggest, probably his biggest donor, one of his biggest donors. And there were rumors about it. I was hearing people say in his camp that he had lost a big donor. And I got a tip on who it was from a TPUSA insider. Then I heard from a separate source who attended a gala dinner in Los Angeles that this donor, whose name is Robert Shillman, very appropriate name.
They've always got a name.
It's like,
that matches the persona. Yeah.
Why don't you call him like, Seymour Kleptowitz or Land Theftowitz?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too appropriate. Bill Ackman's almost kind of like very,
it's benign in comparison.
It's very, and it's kind of evocative in a way. But anyway, so I find out that Robert Shillman at this banquet had actually complained about Charlie Kirk and said, this was on September 6th, 4 days before he was shot, that he was defunding him. He was not going to fund him anymore, and he was going to be contributing elsewhere. So I called up not only Robert Shillman, who hung up on me when I asked him about his comments, but the president of that organization, the American Freedom Alliance, who got really upset with me and hung up. And then I called the MC of the dinner, who said that, I can neither confirm nor deny, and you could tell he was really nervous as well. So I went with the story. And then since then, Laura Loomer has been kind of like trying to find some avenue to attack me, because she's a Shillman fellow. She's a Shill woman. And Shillman was one of her longtime backers. And she's now claiming, which is really interesting, Laura Loomer, I mean, this is someone who's actually like making personnel decisions inside the Trump administration, and is very personally close with Trump. Maybe, I don't know, in some ways closer than Melania is. And she made an effort to kind of distance herself from Shillman, which is interesting because if you look at Laura Loomer's Twitter activity after the TPUSA summit in Tampa, Florida last summer in July, when Tucker Carlson got up on stage and mocked Bill Ackman as a scam artist and said, Americans who go as foreign fighters for Israel should have their citizenship pulled, and Epstein was a Mossad agent. Everyone was saying that on stage. Loomer just went off on Charlie Kirk and said he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He can't be trusted. Basically softening him up for what was going to be like a bigger Zionist campaign against him. And what my theory is that she may have actually gone to Shillman and said, defund this guy, like destroy him. Like he was under a ferocious attack. And at the same time, this is the second part of my third story, fourth song off my third album. The second part is about how I learned more about these managers, these sort of Zionist managers that were seeking to control Charlie Kirk's message as he embarked on the first leg of his tour at Utah Valley University, speaking to him every day. They were trying to set up a WhatsApp group with him so they could speak to him every minute. They were having Zoom calls. Bill Ackman was on the Zoom call. In this Zoom group, it was like 10 people. Joshua Hammer from Newsweek, who's one of Netanyahu's top voices inside the US, who on October 8th, 2023, the day after October 7th, called for Israel to flatten Gaza and turn Gaza into a football stadium and to target its civilian population and expel them. He's a Newsweek editor at large, but he's an Israeli plant. And then Sean McGuire, someone to really keep an eye on, who's a VC, he's a venture capitalist at Sequoia Capital, who said that Zohran Mamdani comes from a culture of lying. And he just made several racist comments about him. These guys are all targeting Mamdani too, and they were trying to work through Charlie Kirk. They're obsessed with Mamdani. And part of the reason that the Influencer Summit was convened by Ackman and the Hamptons was to basically buy clicks by influencers who were disproportionately young, seemingly attractive women and minority males against Mamdani, to get them to do posts against Mamdani. And they're just straight up grooming them.
Yeah.
Then, many of them went on a free Israeli government-sponsored propaganda trip soon after. But back to the Zoom calls, there was one figure in particular named Pesa Wolicki from a group called Israel 365 Action, which has a contract with the Israeli Foreign Ministry to send mostly conservative Christian influencers to Israel on propaganda tours. I got one of the invites that he sent to an influencer and published it in this piece. He said that he was on the phone daily with Charlie Kirk, giving him talking points for his upcoming tour, and that Charlie Kirk was pushing back, and that he seemed frustrated, and that he had kind of he was under the influence of people that Wolicki didn't like. So it was very clear Charlie Kirk was undergoing a transformation. And so if we start from the beginning, Netanyahu is trying to claim Charlie Kirk. He thought it was going to go very well, and that none of this would come out. It all comes out. It's now at the point where J.D. Vance on Charlie Kirk's show after Kirk was killed confirmed something I reported, which is that Charlie Kirk personally stormed into the White House and demanded that they not attack Iran after towards the end of the 12-day war, that they not basically rescue Israel. Vance confirmed that. So Netanyahu had a real problem, and then something else was happening at the same time. And I have no control over this. Like I said in my first piece, there is no evidence that the Israeli government played a role in Charlie Kirk's assassination, and I called it an unsubstantiated theory. All right? So just to be clear about that. Other people drew the conclusion that Israel did kill him, and they were getting millions of impressions on social media.
And given what Israel gets away with every single day, you can understand why people would draw that conclusion. It's understandable in this context where Israel has impunity to do whatever it wants, and is therefore and is so evil in its actions. It's a natural suspect for anything, even if there's no evidence to support it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they hold the record for global assassinations.
Yeah,
that's their MO, and they take credit for assassinating journalists every week in the Gaza Strip. They boast about it. But here, this provoked Netanyahu not once, but twice, the second time on his personal prime minister social media channel, to declare, to categorically deny that he assassinated Charlie Kirk. I mean, when have you ever seen a foreign leader come out on his own volition and volunteer that he didn't assassinate a U.S. political leader?
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
Yeah.
And so many people actually took that as a confession of guilt. I saw it as, for once, Netanyahu may not have assassinated someone, and he just wanted everyone to know that for once he wasn't guilty. But I don't, I'm struggling increasingly to accept the official story as the official story grows murkier and murkier about this assassination. And I'm just, I would like to see a better investigation and more evidence. And the internet is definitely not buying it. So these theories are going to abound and run wild. And, for all I care, I really don't care if people blame Netanyahu or not. I just don't have any evidence of that. Ben Shapiro also came out and denied that Israel did it.
Yeah.
How would he know anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a tool. But this is this was deeply, deeply damaging to Netanyahu's PR and his ability to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy. And why did it matter so much? Because Charlie Kirk stood atop the last base of grassroots support that Israel commanded inside the United States. And it's falling apart. There's a conservative revolt against Israel and Israeli influence inside the US. And they need that base because they need those young white Christian men to go to war for the self-proclaimed Jewish state.
Yes. Yes. And that to me is the significance of your story. That to me is what this is all about. It shows that just the very thin grasp they have over the American right and how they're scared of losing it. And they need that to be able to continue being the Jewish supremacist state that they are. And the intimidation tactics they go to against people, the combination of bribery, funding, and then blackmail by taking it away. I mean, that's how they operate. And, you've been covering Israel for a long time. So, how does this fit into Israel's overall longstanding efforts to basically preserve U.S. support, especially from the political bases that are most important to them, like evangelicals and Congress?
Well, Israel's support is completely top down in the U.S. The bottom has dropped out of it. So these 3 articles should be read as a kind of inside story of how Israel lost the right-wing grassroots. They're gone. They're completely gone. And at the same time, there's a recognition, which is correct, that the media still plays a role in shaping opinion. So Israel's buying, they're literally buying every media entity they can. And the way this is being interpreted in mainstream media, which is sort of liberal, is that it's a pro-Trump media takeover. They're like pro-Trump forces are taking it over, and Oracle is backing it. What is Oracle? Oracle's Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison on Ellison's Island, hosted in his private island in Hawaii, Benjamin Netanyahu. Larry Ellison's biggest issue is Israel. And Oracle has, it grew out of the CIA. It's basically a data contractor for the CIA, the intelligence world, and it's building data centers across the US to drive the AI so-called revolution. But Larry Ellison's interests lie with Israel. So do his sons. So does it's the same with his son, David Ellison, who Jack Paulson has exposed this at his Substack through the Handala leaks of Benny Gantz's personal email account, that David Ellison for years has been involved in coordinating with the Israeli government to attack BDS and the Palestine Solidarity Movement in the US. So David Ellison is taking over CBS with his dad's money and installing Barry Weiss, who just had a softball interview with the former director of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen. Didn't ask about Epstein until the lightning round at the end. It was just a complete softball, humanizing interview of this mafia don. And then there's TikTok.
Yes.
Oracle is buying TikTok along with Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen, venture capitalist. He's blocked me.
His father is David Horowitz.
So
right?
Robert Horowitz's father's David Horowitz, who is the mentor of Charlie Kirk, by the way, but who was like one of the most anti-Palestinian fanatics our country has ever known, who was funded, his whole political empire was funded by Robert Shillman, who I mentioned before.
There we go.
Andreessen Horowitz is just a ultra-Zionist Likud venture capital consortium that is partnering with Larry Ellison to take over TikTok. So basically, Trump is the host body for Israel in all of this.
Yes.
And liberals only see, the clouds, and they're not seeing the sky behind it. And Israel controls Trump, and so these will be ostensibly pro-Trump networks, but they will advance Israel's agenda.
Yeah, the White House press secretary Leavitt, she said this week, ahead of the deal being signed, that Trump has finalized for the Ellisons to get TikTok along with his partners you mentioned, that the new TikTok algorithm will be secured and retrained. So what does that mean? They're going to suppress all the images that got them to force the sale of TikTok in the first place, which is of dying murdered Palestinians in Gaza. Mitt Romney and Antony Blinken openly admitted that when they did a little fireside chat publicly, where they talked about how TikTok was a major problem because it was letting people see images of the Gaza Holocaust. And Mitt Romney and Blinken agreed that that was a major threat. And it's openly admitted that, initially there was some hesitancy on Capitol Hill to go after TikTok. But after October 7th, that changed because TikTok was letting young people see and share the truth about the Gaza genocide. And so that's what leads us now to yet another major platform being handed over to Zionist billionaires. And by the way, the Ellisons, Larry Ellison and his son, they're also making a bid to buy CNN.
Yeah.
So we could have a situation where the Ellisons control CBS News, CNN, and also TikTok.
And they've bought all conservative media. Newsmax is now funded by the Israeli Foreign Ministry, and they're sending influencers over to Israel. One American News, I was told by a former producer there that Miriam Adelson has funded them.
Really? Sometimes that channel has done some anti-war stuff.
Well, I'm supposed to go on Matt Gaetz' show tomorrow to talk about all this, and he's been pushing back really hard against. He's part of the conservative revolt against Israeli control.
He'll be gone soon if he keeps it up.
Well, he's the only personality there anyone pays attention to. But I've been hearing from right-wing media figures and journalists since I came out with these pieces, and like what they tell me is like every single outlet is on lockdown by Israel. I mean, Gateway Pundit, for example, was basically founded in Jerusalem after a meeting with Netanyahu, Jim Hoft, Andrew Breitbart, and all of these other kind of like neocon figures. And there's no room for debate there. Same with Breitbart. I mean, they're all just like people would say there was a lady in the office that I hadn't seen before, and all she seemed to care about was Israel. Like I just keep hearing these stories. I mean, you look at Tim Pool getting a private meeting with Netanyahu where he's not allowed to even discuss what took place. It was
whereas he once allowed dissenters to come on. Like I was on a show. I think you were on a show too.
I was on on October 10th, 2023. And he let me say my piece.
I was on the day that Chris Coons got me kicked off the train. I was on my way to go do Tim Pool's show. So but since then he's met with Netanyahu, and he's someone who's fallen in line. I
kind of clammed up. And whenever he gets asked about it, he looks like a deer in the headlights. So this is part of the program, is basically buying influence within the new media, which is supplanting the discredited old media that they're buying anyway, just so they can control those assets. And that's what the Bill Ackman Hamptons Influencer Summit was about. It's like just buying impressions, buying clicks for Israel through these completely avaricious, vapid figures like Xavier Durousseau. This guy's basically just like a child actor. He just wants to be an actor. And so wealthy Zionists are paying him, and they're writing his script. And if you go to his Instagram account, like the categories are all like Zionism, Israel. He is a black man from Louisiana. It just looks weird. And then they got Emily Wilson, who is Emily Saves America. Emily's going to save America by advancing Israeli interests in Washington. She used to actually criticize Israel, and then they sent her on a propaganda trip. She was at the Influencer Summit. So it's like Israel's recognized the threat it faces, and they're just buying. And anyone who wants to be bought will get bought. There's a lot of money out there. And I want to address one of the lies that's being introduced, and I don't even exactly know where it came from, which is that Andrew Colvett, who is Charlie Kirk's kind of like spokesman, he's like the comms director for TPUSA, and they said he's his best friend. I tried to take down some of the misinformation about Charlie Kirk, specifically relating to my reporting and things that Candace Owens has said as well. And he said, Charlie Kirk and TPUSA never would have accepted $150 million from Netanyahu because we don't take foreign money. But no one ever said that.
Never said that.
I never reported that. Yeah. What I said was that Netanyahu was seeking to recruit his coterie of millionaires and billionaires inside the U.S. to fund TPUSA to the hilt in order to in order to basically incentivize Charlie Kirk falling back into line on this issue. And I never said anything about $150 million. I don't even know where that came from. I saw like America First Post said something about that, but so basically they're taking down, it's a straw man tactic.
Yeah.
They're taking down an allegation that was never made.
Well, so what does that mean? If they're going out of the way to deny things you've never said, I take that as confirmation of everything you actually did say.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
they're not denying that.
Well, he also avoided denying that Netanyahu had made any offer at all.
Yeah.
We know Netanyahu offered him a trip to Israel, and he, according to several sources, refused. Netanyahu said that himself.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. So Andrew Colvett also addressed the notion that Charlie Kirk was entertaining a conversion to Catholicism, which would have been significant vis-a-vis Israel, because the Catholics, and especially like the trad Cath world, are less likely to be Christian Zionists.
Sure.
And they don't have this concept of Israel as like covenant land. They're not as interested in the book of Revelations and the rapture and so on.
Yeah.
And first, Charlie Kirk's pastor, who I think was on Charlie Kirk's payroll along with his son, didn't deny that. And then Andrew Colvett came out and said the reason that Charlie Kirk was going to Catholic Mass with his wife was because they just liked the visual aspect of the churches. The Catholic churches are really decorated so well. And so they were just kind of like enjoying the vibe of the church. Like, yeah, that really checks out, especially from the guy who said that the reason there's no exit wound and no bullet has been produced is because Charlie Kirk had, in his words, a steel spine that stopped the bullet and saved everyone. I mean, we're talking about a 30-06 sniper rifle that can like blast through a tree trunk from 150 meters away. So a lot of the bad Hasbara is just so transparent right now that it just raises further questions and corroborates all my reporting. And Colvett did corroborate that Charlie Kirk complained about blackmail, that he felt like he was being blackmailed.
For people complaining about our production levels here, we did this very last minute, and at least we're in person together, which we don't very often do. But we will be doing more of these because it's much better. And thanks everyone for tuning in live with us on such short notice. Let me talk for a second about Trump and Ukraine. It's being
Well, I have Donald Trump, right? That story just got there, especially with the way that they're traveling here, the FBI is traveling, trying to shut this case down. And it is also somewhat related to another explosive story that I have for you today, because do you remember Thomas Matthew Crooks? Probably not, because oddly, the feds told us that, hey, don't even worry about that 20-year-old who got up on a rooftop and tried to assassinate President Donald Trump, right? That story just got buried. Well, today we have some exclusive information about him, never before seen footage of Matthew Crooks, and it's going to be just the beginning of our coverage regarding what we know. So welcome back to Candace. Okay, so let's start with the breaking news. I don't even know if it's considered breaking news when it comes to the feds. Like, I don't think it's breaking news. I think it's just the news. This is what they do. Well, I have it now on a very well-placed authoritative source that the FBI is putting an absurd amount of pressure right now on the authorities in Utah and also the rest of the government in Utah to come out and to say that the Charlie Kirk case is closed. They want it over. They want Charlie's assassination to be officially ruled lone gunman. It was a lone gunman that did that. Nobody else is involved. Now, why would they? Why would they want that? Right? What are they saying, at least to the authorities? Are they saying like, this is the reason? And I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest or saying something that might ring truer to us, the public, which would be them saying, well, we know who did this and we want to protect those people, so close the case. What they're actually saying instead is essentially, if you don't close the case against Charlie Kirk and rule it a lone gunman, then it might mess up our prosecution against Tyler Robinson. That feels a little bit to me like moral blackmail. Hey, man, we're not hiding anything, but we've got this guy, Tyler Robinson. If you don't close this case, then it might harm our chances of locking this guy up. Yeah, I am sure that they are being just moral. I'm sure they're telling the truth to the authorities. Now, I want to remind you guys, we should take a look at their current case against Tyler Robinson to see if we should accept this narrative, because currently there is absolutely no video which shows Tyler Robinson firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk. In fact, the individual who filmed the footage of the shooter on the roof, the lone video that exists of the shooter on the roof, also told me that he doesn't think that Tyler Robinson is the guy. So how's that going to work for an eyewitness account? When he reported the shooter on the roof to Utah on the campus, he was clear that the person was wearing an entirely different outfit than the ones that they're currently trying to claim that Tyler wore on that day. Remember, Tyler was just supposed to be wearing a t-shirt and some jeans. He says, no, he was in tactical gear. The person that I saw was in tactical gear. Also, that eyewitness told me that gun doesn't even match what I saw. And like I said, this individual definitively has experience with guns. He teaches people how to fire guns. So according to him and what he observed, if he's going to be brought into this court case that they're saying they want to, they want to bring charges against Tyler, he's going to testify and say, no, that doesn't look like the gun. That doesn't look like the person. So how's this going to work? Also, according to the individual that told me this regarding the feds trying to push for this case closure, the feds don't even have any footage that explains how exactly the rifle in particular got onto the roof. That stuns me. That's stunning information, right? Because all we have is, well, in the indictment, he dropped onto the roof at 12:15 p.m. Tyler Robinson just dropped onto the roof. I guess in our minds, we assumed on the basis of the picture that they released the sole picture or set of pictures from the same moment of him walking up the stairs. We assumed that he, like I said, stanky legged it, the whole stanky leg all the way up onto the rooftop. That was our perception. But it turns out, according to my source, they don't know how the rifle got onto the roof. That's interesting. How are we bringing this to trial? Now, regarding the bullets, the source says that it was too fragmented to match Tyler's rifle, so they don't have even the bullet. And let us not forget that Tyler himself has not confessed to anything. And that part also didn't make sense. So they brought him in. Bill Ackman puts up $1 million. Tyler's dad gets the sheriff friend to come over, and they say he did it. And the police come and they bring him in. They bring Tyler Robinson in, but Tyler Robinson doesn't confess. So how did you arrest him? Does that make sense? How could you make an arrest if you didn't have a confession? You would have to have evidence, and the evidence can't be trust my dad, bro. You can't, if I just bring in a random person, if I say, oh, look, Skylar just committed this crime, and Skylar says, no, I didn't, and he doesn't confess, the police can't just make an arrest. You can just arrest Skylar. Nothing is making sense at all. It has not made sense from the very beginning, okay? And that's because the feds are involved. And I believe the feds know exactly what happened. In fact, I don't think it's a stretch of imagination when we examine history to assume that they maybe even had some foreknowledge. Not everybody, Not everybody, obviously, because some people are trying to get the information out and are trying to figure out what happened. But we know that there are people that are a part of that apparatus who are terrible human beings, who we do not want ruling over us, and yet they do. So I'm just curious how exactly they believe they are going to convict Tyler Robinson on this. Oh, you know what? It's probably the Discord messages. I forgot. Silly me. The Discord, I forgot he was so explicit. How could we forget? Oh, Lance, wherefore art thou, Lance? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. And if thou wilt not, Lance, the bullet, me, my handprints, it was me. It was me, my love. I did everything. I carved it. Do you remember, my love, when I was carving the bullets? Yes. Exactly this time is when I did it. And these are the reasons, my MAGA daddy, my love, thou wilt not, my love. Cool story. Very cool story, feds. Kind of feeling like Tyler's going to get off because they've got really nothing but prints. And from my sources, it's not the only set of prints that are on that gun. In fact, the only thing that I have heard that made sense, which did not come from our government, did not come from the feds, did not come from the Utah government, but rather from the people that are on the ground who believe that actually Tyler was just told to walk and drop off his gun at a neighboring house. That for some reason just feels like that might be honest, and that was how he participated in this event. But we'll see, because I'm not going to let this go. So we'll see if the feds tell us to just dismiss it, as they always do. Rather relatedly, something that I wanted to tell you yesterday, we had showed you a clip of Charlie discussing our friendship and how he was feeling morally blackmailed over it. And in that same clip, he mentions a very fond memory that I have, that he was there when I met my husband, and he says it's a really fun story. And it is a fun story. It's actually a totally fun, crazy story of how I met my husband, because I had something that came over me, and that's the only way I can describe it. And I get all of the conspiracies online when people were like, there's no way her and her husband got engaged after 18 days. That's exactly how it happened. Okay. I didn't know him. I never even saw his face 18 days prior. And I'm with Charlie. We're hitting the ground running. And I'm just like, I feel compelled that we must go to the UK. It was, when I say, the most overpowering thing ever. I was like, Charlie, we got to go to the UK. We got to go to the UK. We should go to the UK. We should go to London. And he's like, man, why? Why do you want to go to London? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like we're supposed to be there. I feel like we've got to be there for an event. And I did something that I had never done. I took Charlie Kirk's credit card, and I was like, I'm going to find flights and just book it. And then you just figure out, maybe it means we're supposed to start, Turning Point UK. If there's energy there, that was a part of his vision. He wanted Turning Point to be global, and he had people that were interested in the UK. And so I'm showing you this very old text message chain from that time between me and Charlie, where I never looked at flights, but I booked these flights. And I was like, look, the flights are dirt cheap. Remember I see to London, $450 in coach, or $1,200 in first class. And he's like, wow, let's book it. All right. We booked the flights. And then suddenly I realized the reason that I had this overwhelming feeling to be there was because I was supposed to be my husband. And the only thing I can say is that it was an intuition. We describe it, that it had to have been God. We had just had no other reason to be there. And then Charlie set up a speaking event with some people that had been interested. And sure enough, we were there to help Turning Point UK get set up. Anyways, this overwhelming feeling I had never experienced something like that since, until about a week before, or actually 10 days before Charlie got assassinated. And so I'm going to explain that to you, because you guys who watch this podcast might have realized something, that we took the show off air randomly for the first couple of days in September. So I will describe to you exactly what happened. There at first was a elementary school shooting that happened at a Catholic school, and I was just concerned in a way that I had never felt so impacted. And I was going, something isn't right. Something is just not right. And I felt that there was some sort of an infiltration that was happening at schools. And best way that I can describe it in a sentence is that I sensed that the danger wasn't stopping there, and that more was coming, and that I needed to take a look at just the process of hiring people at the school that my children were going to attend. And I did just a cursory online search and some messages I found, which were not written by a teacher at the school, but someone who was adjacent to some teachers at the school, gave me pause for concern. In fact, explicitly what it was a Polish underground symbol, like a Polish communist underground symbol that nobody would have recognized outside of people who know what it meant. And I just sort of went, okay, that's weird. I kept looking online, and strangely, I'm not kidding, and I'm going to show you these messages. I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees. You're going, "Candace, what do you, like literally bees?" In a way that the only way I can describe it to you is like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded. And I'm going, am I going crazy? Or do you think that all these people are really actually, quote unquote, bee farmers, or saying that they farm bees? What is this lingo that I'm not understanding? Why do I feel like it's related to students? I didn't feel good about it at all. And I just sensed that we needed to get more involved, to go to the school, to ask about the process of hiring, to see if they needed more security. They were kind of giving up me the thing that teachers do now when you ask any questions about what happens at the school, which is they make you think like, why do you want to know? Like, we just do whatever we want to do. It's like, I don't know. My children are like 5 and 4, actually. Parents should, of course, we need to be more involved. Like, how did we get here that we feel like we're crazy for asking questions about the hiring practices at schools? And the feeling just didn't go away. I can show you this actually, because I was thinking, like, I said to my husband, there is some weird underground, it's like I sense like imminent danger is coming. And for some reason, I feel like there is an underground that has emerged at schools, and it's like related to bees. That's what I said. And I messaged multiple people about this, my sister. Here are a couple of more text messages to other people. You can look at the time frame here. This is 8:30, August 30th. This is September 1st when we went off air. September 2nd, we were off air. And I started talking about people that were discussing bees in a way that didn't make sense. I'm like, I don't know if this is drugs. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. And so in a sentence, I just said, there's imminent danger coming. Okay. It is relating to a school. I think it's a communist underground, and I don't know why, but it has something to do with bees. Totally sensible thing to say to your husband. Oh, and we need to hire more security. And we did. We hired more security that very week. And I was just frantic about it. And we made the decision that we needed to homeschool immediately, and started the process, pulled our kids out of homeschooling and starting to interview people. But it wasn't enough. Like, despite hiring more security, despite taking my kids out of school, I still had a sense of dread. The Tuesday night, the night before Charlie got assassinated, I had book club, and I felt like I needed to emphasize to people in book club that it was time to take their kids out of school. Like, take your kids out of school. Danger is happening right now. And I'm going to show you a clip. Obviously, this is all behind the paywall of what I said to people that are in the book club. Take a listen. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm so excited. I'm like very excited. I'm embarking on this recent decision. And it is just, I can't explain to you when a weight got lifted off of my shoulders, because I was like, I can't just speak about this. Like, we have to do it and show people that it can be done. And I'm so glad that my sister who did it first, because I was like, my sister, it was very difficult for her to do this. She's got to wake up super early, but seeing her do it made me go, my older sister, I was like, what is wrong with me? Of course I can do this. And again, this weight being lifted off of my shoulders of like, you don't get my kids. This whole system, this whole matrix, got to send your kids to school so we can what? Indoctrinate them mentally. In some schools, there's abuses that are happening, like, and I just have to take the risk and give you my child, like my small child, and then you're going to gaslight me. This is what happened. Actually, I was like asking the school basic questions, like, because I was only going to put them in like, a little daycare program, pre-K program, and like I was like, ask questions like, how do you hire people? And they were like, you don't get to ask those questions. What's wrong with you, Mom? Why are you so scared? I'm like, okay. Bye-bye. See you never. Don't make me think that I'm weird for being a mom. Okay. Don't make me believe or try to sell to me this idea that we're sharing these kids. These are your students. These are my kids. And if you don't understand that, then they can't be your students. That's it. That was on September 9th. Okay. Then came September 10th. Obviously, Charlie lost his life. And a few days later, I was told, and I sensed instantly that there was like a hive of people that were involved in this. I just knew it. And when it happened, I just went, oh my goodness. And my gut is telling me that this was the thing, that the dread that I sensed that was coming out of school. And I had no idea. I am not a flag person at all. And then someone told me, and I was astonished that Utah recently, extraordinarily, did modernize their B flag. I had no idea that the Utah state flag is a hexagonal beehive, right? And unbeknownst to me, that it has always been the beehive state. So in 2024, they modernized their flag, but they've always been known as the beehive state. And to be clear, it's not because they make honey. It's not because they have a high presence of bees. In fact, in terms of making honey or bee-related products, they rank number 24. It's actually the beehive state. It relates to the Mormon Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints. Early Mormon pioneers founded that state, and they liked the idea of a beehive working toward a common good. Now, if that sounds vaguely familiar or communist to you, the idea of worker bees, yes, that's where it's from. So this sort of doom that I had about an underground happening, I was just like totally freaked out. It's a Soviet symbol, like the idea of making everybody into a worker bee. And whether you're on the left or the right, you should understand where the public school system comes from. Okay. It is shaped by Soviet ideology. I tell people a must-read book is Inside the American Education System by Thomas Sowell. It is not left or right. He is just telling you how it all came together. The decline, the deception, the dogmas, and how they are programming our children. You cannot unread that book after you read it, because you realize there's no such thing as being too hawkish. They know how to get things in there and how to pull children away from their parents, as it was designed in the Soviet system. Okay. Kindergarten, you're like, where does that word even come from? Well, it was established by the communists that tried to overthrow Germany and failed in 1848. Margaret Schurz's, her family came here, and those same communists wanted to make sure that they established kindergarten access to children. They then fought to make sure that we federalized the education system. These are the same people that pushed to make it so that homeschooling is not a thing, right? Like I said, the very reason they wanted to establish public education is because it is essential for radical ideology. They understand something that I think that we have maybe forgotten, which is that children are the most precious resource. The reason for that is because they are the future. One way or another, children are the future, okay? After Charlie's assassination, that feeling still did not dissipate, okay? I understood the imminent doom that I felt that was almost crippling was clearly related to that event. But I just know that all of these random lone shooter narratives that are being intentionally, what we're being told that they're just lone shooters and then we don't really know anything else. I just feel it spiritually that these people are being programmed, and perhaps that is the reason why more often than not, they are being protected by our government. In other words, it is positively foolish for us to believe that the government just cannot tell us anything about these assassins. They wipe everything and they tell us nothing. Why would they do that? Yeah, that guy, they're always working alone. There's no online history that we can reflect on. What are you talking about? Which brings me to Thomas Matthew Crooks, because that's exactly what we were told or not told when on July 13th, 2024, a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks climbs onto a roof and tries to assassinate President Donald Trump. Gratefully, Donald Trump did not die, but tragically, one of his supporters did. Okay, a 50-year-old firefighter named Corey Comparatore lost his life trying to save his children. And then we were told virtually nothing. In fact, we were, and I'm laughing here because it's so absurd. We were told Iran did this. What? Because they were itching for war with Iran. Like they're still itching for war with Iran, but like that's what basically was a narrative that was established. They had some warnings that Iran was going to try to assassinate Trump, and we're going, what? Well, guess what happened? Somebody reached out to me because I have been obviously leading the forefront in investigating this lone shooter as it pertains to Charlie Kirk, because it's not a lone shooter. It's a hive. I feel it spiritually. And they said, look, actually, I had been able to scrape everything about Thomas Crooks before the feds got rid of everything. And it's shocking what you look. There is no way this person was not on the federal radar. Now, usually we go, was he on the left? Was he on the right? Because that's the bait. The bait is to make me as a conservative hate you if you were on the left. And if you were on the left, the goal is to make you hate Candace because it allows them to operate in broad daylight. The reality of Thomas Crooks is going to be a story that we should get familiar with. He was at both on the left and on the right. He actually traded sides. He started actually as a Trump supporter. I'm going to show you, and again, to really impress upon you how much this person had to be on the federal radar. I have an 80-page document, which I'm thinking I'm just going to drop on my website tomorrow after handing it over to legal, of all the accounts that he made, all the statements that he made. And he was at first very angry against the left. Outwardly calling for the murder of people that are on the left. And there were videos that he was posting of himself shooting with no bullets in the gun in his bedroom. I'm going to show you one of those videos that's since been scraped. Don't worry, we blurred the weapon just, to keep things above bar here. Take a look. Now, if you're listening to this and you are on Spotify, is essentially, or on Apple, what's essentially happening here is he's just in his room and there's no bullets in it, but he's practicing firing a weapon. And his online history, there's multiple videos that are like this, which I have. His online history shows he was extraordinarily violent. He was always calling for violence. And I can show you one of his comments that he made. This was a comment on a video, Trump humiliated on national TV. And he wrote to someone, haha, that's funny because I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews like the ones that booed Trump and blasting their useless brains out with an AR. Well, to each his own. That's unbelievably violent. Again, another comment where he was commenting on a YouTube video. He wrote, I've noticed a lot of liars talking about the truth in this post. Well, let me tell you some truth. Every one of the Trump-hating Democrats deserves to have their heads chopped off and put on stakes for the world to see what happens when you F with America. So you go, okay, this guy was a Trump supporter. Then he does a radical transformation around 2020. And this had something to do with COVID. He got very angry at Trump and he was outwardly saying things where people were reporting them on YouTube being like, this guy is absolutely insane. He is a maniac. He's a maniac. He was a maniac who was obsessed with Trump one way or the other. And then he went very much, obviously, which is the reason why he tried to assassinate him post-COVID. He just starts going completely crazy. And he is explicitly researching on Google the history of these assassinations. I can show you his search history here. Leading up to this, he searched best places for a mass shooting. Here are some of his other Google searches. I think we can just scroll down here. Yeah, okay. And this has a timeline on this. Again, I'm going to probably just post this document because you can handle the truth. He was fascinated with this stuff. He was fascinated. You can see here, guns versus protesters, Orlando shooting reaction, cars running over protesters, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb. How do you use a tourniquet? How to make a Molotov cocktail, how to make Molotov cocktails, pardon me, mixing gasoline with styrofoam, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, sniper in Dallas shooting. You want me to believe on the basis of what I have seen that this individual wasn't on federal radar? Just wasn't on federal radar? Guys, that is a nonsense, okay? That is an absolute nonsense. And again, the other element of this is we're never going to be told what therapists he was seeing, okay? What his mom's walking in the room, he's practicing how to shoot. It's very clear what you can see in the background. He's practicing shots. They want us to believe that this just happened by accident, even though for years he was documenting wanting to harm politicians and people that were on the left and people that were on the right. again, on the basis of everything, whether it was their race, their color, whether they were homosexual, there's something there for everyone. So what's happening here? Well, I can tell you my suspicion. I think that this is a program. I do. I don't know, but I know. You know? I don't know, but I know. Because it is giving me the same ick that I had when I was looking through the period and learning the reality of what happened throughout the 1960s when MK Ultra, when that program was running. And I have no reason to believe that that program was ever discontinued. And I believe that they find these candidates in schools. I really do. I think they find these candidates in schools. And so I wanted to express that to you, that we, once again, are having a predicament, and we can trace this straight from what they did to when JFK was assassinated, where the feds are obscuring. They are using journalists to obscure. They are putting pressure on government officials. They are lying to the public about everything, except this time it's regarding Charlie Kirk, which means this time it's not going to fly because I'm not going to allow it to. We'll take a pause here, and we're going to get to something that Megyn Kelly shared on her show about a hex that was put on Charlie Kirk, which is important for us to discuss for a variety of reasons. First, I'm going to throw to some sponsors. Riverbend Ranch, I absolutely love them. Everyone has wanted to do something to try and heal and remember Charlie Kirk. Well, my friends at Riverbend Ranch put together the
But what he taught us continues to resonate with even more power.
There for you. And now things years later, and I'm reading ads for them on the show. Great people. Also want to remind you guys about the Wellness Company, because it is flu season, which means it's also flu shot season after every or to be relying on. All right, guys, wanted to get to Jimmy Kimmel. He's back on air. I guess it was a little time out for Jimmy Kimmel. I was very shocked to see people on the right who were kind of cheering on his cancellation. And I'm not denying the logic of it, going, this has happened to so many people on the right, so when it happens to you, boo-hoo. I get that. But also, if we just keep playing ping pong, nobody wins, and actually except for the government. And I think that's the reason that this sport has been created, left versus right. And Jimmy Kimmel delivered a monologue and thanked people on the right in his very Jimmy Kimmel way. And I got a shout out for saying, hey, common sense, the government should not be getting involved when it comes to speech. That's insane. We cannot cheer that on. Take a listen to his monologue.
I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. Who I never would have imagined, like Ben Shapiro, Clay Travis, Candace Owens, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, even my old pal Ted Cruz, who, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf.
I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired.
Oh, wait, no, not that. The other part.
But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what you can and can't say,
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like, that will end up bad for conservatives.
I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right. He's absolutely right. This affects all of us, including him. I mean, think about it. If Ted Cruz can't speak freely, then he can't cast spells on the Smurfs. Even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it. And thanks.
Feeling is mutual. There are some things you say that make me want to throw up as well. But it is important that we realize government overreach is government overreach. Doesn't matter who it's happening under, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, it's wrong. Okay. And by the way, both sides have been guilty of government overreach. So less of us taking the bait on that. I also want to say, I wanted to show you guys this clip of Megyn Kelly. It's gone pretty viral. It's everywhere, speaking about something that I did not know about, which is pertaining to a hex and a curse that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk were worried about. It's kind of a very shocking story. And I just want to preempt this by saying that for those of you that don't understand that this is a spiritual war that we are fighting, you might have been like me years ago, and I referred to us as the Muggles. Of course, there are people who believe in all of this stuff, and there are people who put spells on people, and they are meaningful. follow numerology. And it's serious. That is serious. And you think that it's not, because they have made our society so plastic and there's no substance anymore. And we are so distracted. But these people who rule over us, okay, they know who they worship. They know they worship Luciferianism. And so I was very alarmed that this had happened. And I honestly had wished that Charlie had reached out to me. Even though they did end up consulting a Catholic priest, I didn't expect, I wish I could have given them the exact person. But take a listen to how Megyn Kelly shares what happened, a curse that was put on Charlie just before he went out to UVU.
I learned when I was out in Arizona last week that 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the far left website Jezebel declared that it had a mission to cast bad luck or a curse on Charlie. They wanted to hurt him in some way. They declared, quote, if the far-right misogynist with a bad haircut wants to villainize independent women, Jezebel is more than happy to be the hag of his nightmares. And they went on to the website Etsy, yes, Etsy, to, quote, cast a curse on him. Yes, this is actually a thing. Etsy, the website known for making arts and crafts on demand, will happily cast a hex through its witches, who you can hire, on someone if you ask them to. Erica and Charlie Kirk heard about these curses. And that news genuinely rattled Erica in particular. She knew Christian teaching on this subject. She loved Charlie, absolutely. And she was scared when she heard of the curses Jezebel had called up. So much so that she and Charlie contacted a friend who I believe she said was a Catholic priest, but definitely a friend, and asked him to come over and pray with them over Charlie the night before he was murdered. She eventually worked it through, and so did Charlie. That, as she later told me, weapons will form but not prosper. That Satan and those witches have no power.
So just to add a little color to the story, I think that the people who did this and what we've learned about those women is I think they were probably who hired, people that did the hiring were probably trying to be funny. People that don't believe in spiritual forces were probably just like, LOL, it's like Vice. It's like, Vice publication. Like, I smoked a blunt and, listen to the Beatles music backwards. Like, it's like, they don't take that stuff seriously. So they're trying to be like, haha, funny headline, right? And the person who wrote the article about it said, I'm not calling on dark forces to cause him harm. I just want him to wake up every morning with an inexplicable zit, right? So she's probably trying to be funny, to be fair, but contacted witches who are not trying to be funny. That's the problem when people don't understand that this stuff is real, that you're saying to a witch, yeah, I'll pay for you. I'm going to call, reach out to you to pay for you to put a curse on Charlie. And that witch did that. And it brought, obviously you can see, they were distressed by this. They consulted a Catholic priest who I assume would have immediately conducted an exorcism. That probably should have been done in the Latin rite. But I feel like that's just something that people should know, because until something happens to you spiritually, you tend not to believe in these things. And like I said, that's a part of this. They very much know what religion they follow. The numbers, the numerology, it makes sense to them. The people that are in control of this world. And you should just be very cautious of that stuff. A lot of times I kind of give this example. It's like they can sell us anything as reality. Like, we are now in this culture of what C.S. Lewis refers to as scientism. As long as they say like it's science, it's not weird, then we don't realize that, no, I think these are spiritual forces. Like if a witch was like, ha, here's a potion, take it, it works. You'd be like, oh, that's so crazy. I don't believe in witch potions. But like a doctor can create something and it makes you, and you're like, oh, of course, but this is like backed by science. It's like, okay, by any other name sort of a thing. You know what I mean? But this stuff is real. And I'm glad that the end result thus far of how it has impacted society to watch Charlie be assassinated, even though we don't know who exactly was behind this, we know it was more than one person, is that people are going back to church, and that they had that instinct when they watched it. They suddenly realized, whoa, they got hit spiritually, even if they hadn't been to church in years. I was getting comments, I haven't been to church in 20 years. And for some reason, watching the death of Charlie Kirk made me know that I needed to go to church. That is at least one thing in this. And there have been other things that has made me very happy. Anyways, I want to make sure I have time for your comments because we do have book club tonight, and I'm going to build upon what we're speaking over these last 2 weeks. This book we're reading is very important, the Assault on Truth, and so much of rereading this book is reminding me of what is happening with Charlie Kirk and how we're being lied to about everything and how evil the people are that are doing the lying. It's an important book because you have to know what these people are capable of. First, going to read a couple of sponsors. Home title.
Assassination of Charlie Kirk. The FBI wants us to believe their official narrative. Tyler Robinson was the shooter. He's not cooperating with police. And within that short timeline, they managed to lock up the case. Nothing to see here. He's a lone gunman. He fired a .30-06 round into Charlie Kirk. Where's the exit wound? Why was Charlie Kirk receiving death threats? We now learn just a few days before he was assassinated. His right-hand man, Frank, who was there in the car holding his body as he passed away, admitted that Charlie was receiving death threats in the days ahead of time, and he told him to increase his security detail. We're also learning some interesting information about that security detail, the Schaefer Group. We wanted to bring in Roger Stone. He's the best-selling author of The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ. Roger knows all about how people can conspire to kill a man, and this is really an interesting template into looking at Charlie Kirk's life. Roger has had a lot of questions over the past few days after the passing of Charlie Kirk. Roger, good to have you back on the show.
Great to be with you. Having written this book on the Kennedy assassination, I've also just finished a book on the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. I'll be out before the end of the year, I think by Christmas. Having studied very closely the assassinations of Senator Robert Kennedy and Dr. King, there's just a lot of recurring patterns here. Obviously, in the case of Kennedy, the lack of an exit wound has confounded historians and JFK researchers for decades. It's not possible for Sirhan to have shot Senator Robert Kennedy. He was always in front of Kennedy. But the autopsy by Thomas Noguchi, one of the most respected pathologists, then the LA medical examiner, said that RFK was shot at point blank range from behind in the lower left skull. That would be with the barrel right up against his skin. And in the case of Ronald Reagan, John Hinckley Jr. is always in front of Reagan, crouching, meaning bullets came from the front and an upward trajectory. Yet, as I will prove in medical records, Reagan was hit from above and behind. And so it is with Charlie Kirk. I've tried to focus on this as a two-part question. What happened? And then to try to determine who was behind it. As you point out, the FBI has wrapped this up very quickly. They told us in 7 days. J. Edgar Hoover told us that Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone nut, a communist, that was his motive, killed JFK. Virtually no one believes that today. Once again, the FBI tells us a lone killer, a radicalized leftist shooting from the top of the building. But between the dissembling of his rifle, the changing of his clothes, there's a lot of questions there. And then I've really tried to consult with both doctors who are experts on bullet wounds, as well as sportsmen and marksmen. And virtually all of them question the lack of an exit wound, very much like in the JFK situation, would be very rare, given the facts that we've been presented. So, now you've got all kinds of other theories. You've heard the theory that the driver of Kennedy's limousine turned around and shot him with a Derringer. That's not true. But you'll certainly find it all over the internet. Now you hear word of trap doors and the possibility that he had an exploding microphone. I haven't even had time to look at those theories. But at this point, I think everything should be considered, and the people deserve the truth.
We learned over the past 24 hours that Charlie Kirk said that the Israelis provide the best security. And there's apparently a deleted portion of his interview with Bill Maher that has surfaced from April, where we learned that Charlie's security on the day of his assassination was an Israeli-owned or a Zionist-owned Schaefer security group, who apparently ended their contract with Turning Points USA back in 2022, but suddenly showed up for this event. I haven't been able to verify this yet. Have you heard any news about his security detail? And would you be looking at them in any way? I mean, we've heard from Frank, his right-hand man, that these guys were incredible. They grabbed him, threw him right in the truck. They threw him right in the SUV. They were incredible on that day.
Well, obvious questions. First of all, why was there no effort to seal off the crime scene? You see people grabbing hats. You see the entire crime scene being contaminated. No security professional would have allowed that. Why the rush to remove the camera behind him? Why did it have to be done virtually immediately after he was slain? I find both those things, again, extraordinarily suspicious, given this vaunted reputation of his security team. And then all of the look at those messages on Discord that are allegedly between Tyler Robinson and his transgendered boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They sure read like they were AI generated to me. They're a little too perfect. They certainly don't reflect somebody who's in a hurry by any means. Perfect grammar, perfect punctuation, a little strange. So again, I'm wondering whether, as in the Kennedy situation, we're being handed this package with a nice wrapped up bow, radicalized leftists acting alone from the top of the building, leaves a rifle where it can obviously be found, somehow disassembles it, reassembles it. Very strange, very, very strange.
Yesterday on the show, my lovely wife and co-host broke down and kind of went through the timeline, which that has been one of the most troubling pieces of this, Roger, which is this weird, it happens on Wednesday, September 10th at 12:23. 33 hours later, the alleged shooter turns himself in. Hours later, the roommate is picked up. And then Friday, right at 8 a.m., the governor of Utah comes right out at 8 a.m. So that 8-hour timeline after the roommate is picked up at 11:30 p.m. to the 8 a.m. the next morning, suddenly the Utah governor is out there at the podium saying, we got him, we're all good. The roommate was released, nothing to see here. We got our man and we're done. The timeline, that it really makes zero sense to us here at Redacted, but what do you make of the hours that had passed and the quickness? I mean, you're still investigating the Kennedy assassination from all of these decades later, but they're done in 8 hours after they get his roommate. We're done. We're good. Nothing to see here, Roger.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Almost immediately after JFK was killed, Lyndon Johnson is now president. It's before he's been sworn in, but he never needed to be sworn in. That was just to twist the knife in Bobby Kennedy, because he automatically became president upon John F. Kennedy being declared dead. So that whole scene that staged in Air Force One was completely unnecessary. Or it was to pass the imprimatur of power to LBJ and put Jacqueline Kennedy's stamp on it by making her stand there. She's heavily sedated, still splattered with her husband's blood. But in the immediate aftermath of Kennedy being killed at Parkland Hospital, the new president is in the elevator with Malcolm Kilduff, who's the spokesman for the president, the deputy press secretary. And Kilduff says to Johnson, "Who would do such a horrible thing, Mr. President? Who would kill our president?" And Johnson says, it was a Russian, son. He says, a Russian? What kind of Russian? A Russian communist, son. Now, this is before the FBI has announced that Lee Harvey Oswald has been apprehended. So I think I've seen this movie before.
Right. We're getting this information. We were also getting news reports before we had official confirmation from overseas. We've seen this before. We saw this in the case, I think, of the Kennedy assassination. We've seen this in other cases as well. On 9/11, reports pouring in from overseas before the United States even had a chance to respond. I guess one of the other big pieces of this, I want to kind of circle back on this exit wound piece. You know, so many online sort of keyboard cowboys are trying to, you know, point out that he was shot from the side, that this exit, with what you see in his neck, of course, is the exit wound, that he was shot in the chest. It traveled up, hit his spinal column, and exited through his neck. That's a piece of the, you know, fragment from the exit wound. Your focus has been on this exit wound question. So what do you make of the videotapes of him being shot and speaking to the different experts that you've been speaking to?
They all point out that in their belief, there should have been a more prominent exit wound and some blood splatter from that exit wound. Virtually every doctor I've talked to who specializes in gun wounds, in gunshots, have said the same thing. Now, some have argued that the ammunition, the round, may have not been what we think it is, but almost all of them have said we need not just an autopsy, but we need a what they call a CT, a comptology study that basically does a computer image of the body from every angle, and that would be extraordinarily telling. Now, they're rarely done on people who have actually been killed. They're usually done on people who are still alive and still that they're trying to save. But in this case, every doctor I've talked to thought that that would be necessary to try to determine the actual cause of death, and the whether he was killed by a bullet and whether that bullet had a specific upward or downward trajectory.
What about the medical examiner's report, Roger? Where are we at with that? And, you know, we saw in the case of Matthew Crooks after Butler, Pennsylvania, his body was cremated almost, you know, pretty quickly. His apartment was wiped clean. Do you think we're in the same mode of a cover-up here, or do you think we're actually going to see a medical examiner's report and full details and transparency?
Well, I think this is the great beauty of the internet. I mean, they were able to keep a very focused and controlled narrative regarding John F. Kennedy's murder, for example. We still have so many unanswered questions about Butler, Pennsylvania, yet we've moved on in a certain sense. Very few people still asking those questions. I think this remains to be seen. The government has their narrative, but let's take an example. The Wall Street Journal breathlessly reported that one of the casing shells had some transgendered slogan or theme on it. Yet the government's claim is that there was just one Antifa-oriented etching on one of the shells. I don't know to this day which one of those is correct. I think the Wall Street Journal is wrong, but then that would determine or show that the narrative that they want us to choose is that transgendered activism, radicalism is responsible as the motive for the killing of Charlie Kirk.
Do you think Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger? Do you think he's the one responsible solely?
I don't, but that's just a personal opinion, and it's a preliminary one. Again, I don't. Charlie Kirk was a very good friend of mine. I didn't know him until he reached out to me after 29 heavily armed FBI agents stormed my home at 6 o'clock in the morning to arrest me for the non-existent crime of lying to Congress about Russian collusion that we now know never actually happened. How can you actually do that? And he befriended me, became both a public and a private advocate for clemency in my case, an advocate for my unconditional pardon. I love the man. I spoke at most of his large conferences. He was very, very good to me. So this is, you know, I don't want to dance on his grave. I'm not looking to, you know, to push myself into the narrative, but having written 2 books now on presidential assassinations and worked with Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman from Florida, who's doing an extraordinary job, still trying to wrench information out of the national security apparatus on the Kennedy assassination. She still doesn't have everything she's asked for, everything the president has ordered released. It's a subject that I know quite a bit about. And frankly, I'm not going to stop my inquiries until I've satisfied myself that either the government's version of events is true or it isn't true.
Well, I guess I'll leave you with this, Roger, which is a question I asked you many months ago when we had you on to talk about JFK specifically. But who do you think is responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk?
Too early for me to say. It could very well be a radicalized leftist. That's possible. Maybe their theory is right. Look, I do have a very high regard for Kash Patel. I know him well. And I think he's a person of integrity. It'd be very hard for me to figure out why he would say something that wasn't true. At the same time, Charlie Kirk was becoming increasingly important on the international stage. I know for a fact that things our mutual friend Tucker Carlson and others have said about the pressures on Charlie regarding Middle Eastern issues was very, very true. Look, there was a lot of disagreement within our movement about what to do regarding the Iranians' development of a nuclear weapons capability. And I think the president, in the end, kind of took the middle course, which was the right thing to do, a surgical strike, no boots on the ground, no long-term commitment, not a single American service person loses their life. I'm fairly convinced that we did do serious damage to their weapons development program. I think that turned out to be exactly the right decision. But you'll remember there was huge debate within our movement about whether the president should do this about or not, and whether Charlie Kirk got himself on the wrong side of people within that debate. I think that remains to be seen. There were some indications based on my own conversations with him that there were people who were supporters of his who were unhappy with his questioning of whether that was the right thing to do.
And, you know, I didn't know Charlie as well as you did. But I do know that he wasn't the type of person given to hyperbole, you know, just to fluff himself up and make him seem. He was telling people in private that there were death threats, as he was telling Frank that there were significant death threats against his life. I hope that the FBI is forthcoming with that information. Who specifically was threatening his life? And were these just keyboard cowboys, or was there a legitimate reason that he needed to beef up his security in the days before the assassination? So I hope we get these answers. Roger, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess we need to know the full and complete truth. I'm still not satisfied with what we know about Butler. It's amazing to me that the trial of the man who tried to kill Donald Trump in the West Palm Beach golf course is going on, even as we speak, is getting virtually no media attention whatsoever. Virtually none.
Right.
Most people don't even know what's happening. And there are even more questions about him and that incident than there are about Butler in many ways. So I think we need to continue to seek the truth. That's why programs like this are so vitally important. We're asking questions here. We're not making final assertions. We're asking important questions. But at the end of the day, we need those answers.
Cool. Follow me.